WWLS The Sports Animal.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WWLS The Sports Animal's coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. Coming to you live from Hopscotch, Hefner and May. The party is already going on. Saw some Thunder shirts out there. We've got the legend Al Eschbach, Bobby Thompson, myself, Gideon Hamilton, to take you through whatever it is that might happen tonight. And we've got some fireworks already kind of in the trade market that have kind of swirled around some picks, some free agents. And this is really, really an exciting night. No matter what takes place when you look at teams that have won a championship or teams that are competing for a championship or teams that have a disappointing season, usually, Al, you can trace it back to what happens on this night.
Well, and you know from history that some organizations will make a good pick, and then the other ones, they'll make a bad pick.
Yeah.
That's the history of we've seen for so many years that you trace it back, and it's fascinating.
What about the Thunder?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of their picks,
most have been good,
right? Especially where they're at. 12 and earlier. Last year we're looking at this, and and they picked Jalen Williams, and I'm going to sit here and tell you, I didn't know a whole lot about him. We know plenty about him now, as it was a fantastic pick. But then you have picks like Ousmane Dieng where you don't know what's happening. So I think it's going to be fascinating what Oklahoma City does, whether they move up, whether they move down, or whether they actually make that pick at 12.
I think as we've gotten a little bit closer to the draft, there was a lot of excitement for a while with, and we talked about this yesterday, some teams that were kind of open for business at 2, 3, 7, 10, for instance, for a while. It's really, really difficult to make moves, not only for those guys that are out there, but also in order to make a package that is attractive enough to pry those guys away from those teams. And I think we've probably seen that over the last week.
Well, and we see two teams that are stacked with future draft picks. The Thunder at San Antonio. We haven't talked about that. Man, they got a chance. Again, in past history, they've done a good job. Now, they're lucky as hell getting where they can get Robinson, Duncan, and Wembanyama.
Yep.
But they got a history of putting pieces around it. They got some good assets in the next 3 or 4 years. We can see what they do. Utah got all the assets from the Gobert deal. The Thunder obviously got so many assets. You guys, what do you foresee Dallas doing? I mean, that could the Thunder switch with Dallas? Is that tonight possible?
Oh, they could. I mean, 2 picks away, it's just really tough for them to go after picks, Bobby. And that's everybody here except for Washington, really, is continuing to want to get better right now.
Sure.
And Oklahoma City doesn't have a lot of those guys that are available. They're either part of the rotation or they're guys that are not going to help you, and there's relatively a few of each. And so I just don't know if the Thunder can offer up a package that would be good enough for a team that is in front of them to say, to come to the press conference at the end of the night and say, hey, I know we didn't draft Taylor Hendricks, or I know we didn't draft Amon Thompson, but we got a first rounder in 2028 and one in 29. So what do you think?
That'd be horribly disappointing if that's the conversation
that would be
after this draft. The thing about it is, your point's well made. A lot of teams, Dallas can't afford to take picks on because they've got Doncic and Kyrie who are winning now.
Okay, what about Kendrick Williams or Wiggins?
If you want to get rid of one of those guys, I think there's value there. I absolutely think, especially with Kendrick, I think there's value there. But also you have so much youth on this team, and Shea's getting there now as he's gotten into this this contract that he signed, and he's not a rookie or a young kid in this league anymore. He's an all-star guy, but they're still really, really young, and so I think Kendrick will still be very valuable on this team. But like you said, I think you mentioned Washington. I think another potential maybe landing spot. You said the number 7 pick, Indiana.
Yeah.
They've got 1 million picks, and they're still dangling Miles Turner. They're still dangling Buddy Hield. They might be prime for a little bit of a rebuild if you can put the right package together. What does that mean? Do they want future capital as far as draft goes? Who knows? But I think that's a phone call you got to make.
So let's go and get your thoughts on everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. When we were on the air together, we thought this was going to be Malcolm Brogdon going to the Clippers and Porzingis obviously to Boston. The Wizards get basically nothing back except financial freedom, which is really what they want. Then that deal falls apart. I guess Brogdon, they got some medical information in the deal that the Clippers weren't interested in that. Another deal is made. And so when the initial trade was discussed by those reporters, it was like, well, I thought they were going to trade Marcus Smart. So I guess he's the guy now. And now that trade didn't go through, they were able to find a partner in Memphis for Marcus Smart. So he goes there. Washington gets Tyus Jones, who's an actual player, and they get a pick out of the deal. So this ended up being better for them. And then Porzingis eventually winds up in a Celtics uniform. What were your thoughts on that deal?
Well, Marcus Smart brings grit, toughness to a Memphis team that has the biggest knucklehead as its star. I like Marcus Smart a lot. And Dylan Brooks was a really good defender. He's gonna be gone there. So Marcus Smart fits that role. I love the role of Smart. I like Porzingis a lot. I mean, they need some offensive help inside, and Porzingis I think is a pretty good player. I think Boston's going to be pretty good. Now Brogdon got to stay healthy since Smart isn't there. So it's going to be hard at this Marcus Smart not in a Celtic uniform.
Yeah, the over-under of days it takes Marcus Smart to punch John Morant. I think that's going to be an interesting bet. Number two, here's the thing about Porzingis. I'm not a Porzingis guy. I think that he's been overrated. I think he was really good with your Knicks. But after that, it's just been kind of, whatever. I think he's perfect for the Celtic team because there's zero pressure on him. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're going to eat up the majority of that pressure to win because it's already on them because they've lost in a finals and they've lost in a conference finals. So now the pressure is on that big two to get it done. Now all of a sudden you got the unicorn floating around. All he's going to do is shoot open jump shots because you've got to worry about Brown and Tatum. So I think it's a great move. As much as I hate to admit it, I think it's a great move for the Boston Celtics.
Everybody's bringing up the comparisons between Tony Allen and Marcus Smart, Tony going from Boston to Memphis at about the same age. But the comparison between Marcus Smart and Dylan Brooks is really fascinating because you've got another terrific wing defender, a guy that can guard guys in isolation, a guy that has had tremendous issues with his temper before, and offensively can most of the time be a liability against you. And they kind of brought in Dylan Brooks, only much more accomplished and a guy that has a lot more playoff experience. So I think it's an upgrade, but it's just kind of some of those parallels are really interesting.
There is, I think one difference, and I think the comparison was great. It seems to me from the outside looking in that teammates probably like Marcus Smart, where I don't know about Dylan Brooks.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. I also think that when you compare Tony Allen and Dylan Brooks on the offensive side, and I know Marcus Smart is no great shakes offensively, but he's Larry Bird compared to those. I mean, as far as being willing to take shots, and he hits big shots, even though he'll miss quite a few too. But you don't mind him shooting that occasional shot. Whereas I think Dylan Brooks, in a lot of the games, the series against the Lakers, and in other situations for Memphis, he has shot them out. He is not bashful about it. And at some point, you got to go, dude, quit shooting the ball. So I think that Marcus Smart is an upgrade offensively. Maybe slightly, but I think it is an upgrade offensively, and then defensively, he's really, really good.
I will say in some of these deals, and sometimes they're really obvious, like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson being gone from Phoenix and how much that was really going to hurt them. This one, Tyus Jones probably is the best backup point guard in the entire league, and I know to make this deal happen, you have to give up something that you like, and I think that's going to hurt them.
I think it is too,
especially with Morant being
the first 25 games. Who's your point guard now? I mean, maybe it's Marcus Smart, but as far as playmaking goes and that kind of thing, Tyus Jones is a good player, and so I think they will miss him. And when you see what Washington's gotten rid of over the last week or so with Beal and Porzingis and those guys, how sorry do you feel? And Kuzma's not staying there either, by the
Right.
way. He's a free agent. He's out the door.
It's just a
So-
question of whether they sign and trade so they can at least get some picks back.
Absolutely. So how do you feel about Tyus Jones? You go to Washington and go, you cue up the Will Smith standing in the living room by himself meme.
There's going to be one guy that he can pass the ball to a lot.
Yeah,
And that,
Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole.
Oh my gosh!
So later this afternoon, if you've been at work, you didn't see this one. And there was some buzz around this the last 24 hours that Chris Paul, there was some interest there from Golden State. Washington certainly didn't want him there. And the Jordan Poole move was to really get to the salary floor. Like the league has mandated rules on you have to have a certain number of in your contracts to hit this level. And with all these guys being on the outside looking in, Washington had to get to that. So they're fine losing a lot this year to get a good pick to take on this bag contract of Jordan Poole, maybe rehab his image and his game a little bit there with him taking on more of a prominent role. I don't know if that's possible. And then Chris Paul is going to go to Golden State where they just add another player with a lot of experience who can really play, but health-wise has had some issues, and you just don't know.
Well, I think if Chris is willing, I think he probably is at this point. I think he's not going to start for that team for Golden State. I wouldn't think. And who better for a guy to come off the bench and lead your second unit? I think it's a good move for Golden State. I know you and Ravis were talking earlier about the speed that those guys like to play, and that's fair. And Chris Paul's not a get up and down the court kind of guy anymore. But once again, with that second unit, maybe he can be a little bit more effective when he's got those backup guys kind of running around.
Well, I would think that the deal wouldn't have been made if Chris Paul wasn't willing to come off the bench.
I think that's fair. That's a good point. That's an excellent point. And I'm also curious what the thinking is with Draymond as far as signing him and bringing him back on a different number. Because if they do, they're going to be. I think they're going to be every bit as good. I think they're going to be really, really dangerous in the playoffs if Clay can stay healthy.
That's the key. Clay Thompson.
And if Wiggins doesn't miss half a season, for whatever reason he missed half a season.
Yeah.
That is going to be a really interesting combination there. If I had to guess right now, I would say Draymond ends up somewhere else. And I know the dynamic probably shifts a little bit more to him staying with Poole being gone because one of those guys had to go. But I just don't know. He's done such a good job holding that offense together defensively. But there comes a time where you have to recognize where a guy's game is and where it's going to be at the end of whatever this contract is going to be. And I just don't think it's there.
Al, you were talking about Draymond and his importance to this Golden State team. To me, if Draymond re-signs and you've got Chris Paul coming off your bench, Moody coming off your bench, Kuminga, if they don't trade him, and when that starting lineup is going to be intact with Looney and Draymond, and then Wiggins and the Splash Brothers, I think that's a team that could win. I think actually they could win the West. I think they could win the NBA title with that roster. If Draymond's gone, they're a 4, 5, 6 seed in the West. In my opinion, as the ceiling, I think he's that important to that team. Defensively, he does a lot of things, and offensively, he runs the point.
Well,
he does so much for them. I don't think they can win anything without him.
And they're not very good up front.
No, they're not.
If they lose him, they lose. Let me ask you, where would you think he'd go if he opts out there? Where?
Portland.
Okay, really interesting.
I think Portland's going to take a couple of swings this year. I don't know who they would give up, get back. Would that be, finally they unload Nurkic there? I don't.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
So that you also seen Nurkic for Ayton.
Yeah.
Potentials, which I have. I can't stand DeAndre Ayton, but offensively, if he's in the right spot, if Lillard can get him the ball in the right spots, who knows? Maybe it's too early to give up on him. I don't know, but Portland. To me, Portland's an interesting situation because you have to do something with Damian to appease Damian Lillard, or you got to let him go.
Well, let me ask you guys. We talked yesterday about the odds swinging yesterday more toward Miller going number 2.
Yep.
But today I'm reading a lot of experts saying it's going to be Scoot. What's the latest here?
I'm looking at FanDuel right now. So this was last night, Brandon Miller was minus 1,000 to go number 2. This morning, Scoot Henderson was minus 800 to go number 2. And this is probably just on media reports. I don't think there's any inside information. Right now, Brandon Miller is 310, and that's up from I think it was like 260 just a few minutes ago, because Wojnarowski went on TV and said the Hornets are steadfast in their pick of Brandon Miller at number 2.
Well, that's a good reason if you're in Vegas to deal something, right? I mean, dude.
Well, it makes more sense. It makes more sense for them. And I know, I mean, both. What's interesting is 2 and 3 both already have an established point guard. I mean, and Scoot could play the 2, I guess. But you're always looking for that point guard. Both 2 and 3 have that in LaMelo and Damian Lillard. So, to me, say what you want about his personality and all the recent baggage and all that other stuff, the Alabama kid he's the better pick at 2.
Yeah, but what Gideon said yesterday, if he thought Paul George is the greatest player of all time, you take a step back.
I did. NBA Radio had a lengthier interview with Brandon earlier today, and he talked about working out they're like, man, what was it like working out for Michael Jordan? He's there watching you, and did that put pressure on you? Are you nervous at all? And he said, I'm paraphrasing here. This was part of a longer answer, but he's never watched a full Michael Jordan game. He saw some clips on YouTube, and for him, it was just like any other guy watching it. So I wouldn't trust this guy to.
Wow.
For me.
You're working out for Jordan. I mean, that's like doing radio with Al Eschbach. That's the equivalent.
Like I told him yesterday with the Paul George thing. Probably some of this is his favorite player,
right?
Instead of who he thinks the greatest of all time is. And these guys eventually they are all going to say. None of them will have watched LeBron play, and they're going to say that Stephen Curry or Scoot Henderson or whoever is next is going to be the greatest player of all time. I completely understand that, but at least pick somebody who's going to be a top 10 player, somebody who has been over the last 20 years,
or pick somebody who's the best player on their team currently,
or somebody who's not on a trade block currently.
That's exactly right.
All right, coming up next, we're going to be joined by the voice of the Thunder, Matt Pinto, is going to provide his perspective on Oklahoma City's previous draft class, and some of the other storylines. Will certainly get his thoughts on these trades going on. We're having a great time here at Hopscotch. You can check us out on our Sports Animal YouTube, Facebook page, Sports Animal Twitter as well. Go and you can watch us live tonight. We'll be here until 10 o'clock. Their kitchen is open until midnight. They're open until 2 a.m. for the bar. Got a great scratch kitchen out here. Wide selection of craft local beer, craft cocktails, and whiskey. Fantastic food here at Hopscotch. A lot of fun, a lot of games out here as well. And this will be a really, really fun place to have your draft watch party tonight. Hefner and May, Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson, the legend Al Eschbach. This is the Sports Animals coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft.
I probably should have told you that.
Total coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft with Gideon Hamilton and Bobby Thompson on 98.1 FM. WWLS, The Sports Animal.
Along with the legend, Al Eschbach, we are here at Hopscotch, Hefner and May for our Sports Animal Draft Watch Party. Just about to kick things off here in about half an hour or so, and here to help provide his perspective on draft night and also some of the trades that have been going on in the NBA. You know him as the voice of the Oklahoma City Thunder, your flagship home for Thunder basketball. Matt Pinto joins us now. And Matt, as we brought up earlier, any team that had a disappointing season, kind of treaded water, or made it all the way this year, exceeded expectations, you can trace most of their fortunes back to what happened on this night. This is a really important night in the NBA. Tell us about NBA draft night.
Yeah, I think especially for a team like the Thunder, Gideon, in a smallish market, Sam Presti's made no bones about it. This is the path back to high-level competitiveness, to what he envisions and certainly is committed to in terms of long sustainability as a contending team for many years to come. And that build is in process now. So the draft is an enormously important component of having that manifest. And we've seen it already with Josh Giddey, the sixth pick a couple of years ago, somewhat surprising based on the way the national narrative flowed around that draft last season, which had Holmgren, who there's a lot of excitement about debuting this season, fingers crossed, with Ousmane Dieng and him literally growing into a prospect the Thunder are excited about. And Jalen Williams, Santa Clara, J-Dub, who is a first-team all-rookie selection, finished second in Rookie of the Year balloting, and Jalen Williams from Arkansas, who certainly was an enormous contributor for this team as their starting center through much of the second half of the season. So this is the way that Sam Presti and the basketball minds of the Thunder believe is the path to travel to in order to reemerge in a way that he'd feel good about, and he feels like this market would feel good about. So tonight's another opportunity to make this team better in Sam's eyes.
what you feel about a lot of people talk about Thunder got a lot of assets. Could they trade up a couple of spots if there's somebody they really like? What you feel about the thought about trading up? Could it happen? What you thought, man?
Yeah, I think it absolutely could happen. I think trading back could happen. I think there is an organic nature to this draft.
Al's mic is either off or turned way down.
I'm not great in chronology, but I do not recall a more fluid night going into a draft after the first pick in memory. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, from 5 down through probably 18 or 19, there are a lot of guys that could fall in different spots. And I think the Thunder have done their impeccable and incredibly impressive due diligence as to who they identify as Thunder players, that they would absolutely take the leap and try and secure them through the draft. If a player like that emerges above them in a way that is not going to mortgage anything Sam Presti's not feeling good about mortgaging, and the Thunder absolutely would make the move to go up if at all possible. I think the same is the case in retreat. If the draft falls a certain way and Sam feels like he can get a guy that they really like a little lower than 12, I think they would do that as well. I think this is still kind of a fluid, continue improving developmental process for this organization. As much as there's excitement around the 40 wins and a play-in game a season ago, they're not taking their eye off the ball here. They're going to be very diligent in the way that they make this work in the big picture.
Matt, a question about just drafts in general, not necessarily Oklahoma City, but how do you balance best player available versus team need, especially when you get to 12? I mean, because at the top of every draft, you see a list of names. This year, obviously, Wembanyama at 1, and you have your Scoots and all the other, the Miller kid and all that stuff. But when you get to 12, there's just a lot of options there. How do teams kind of manage best player available versus what they need on the roster?
I think, Bobby, if you look over history, teams that have drafted for need have failed more often than succeeded. So I think you've got to go best player available in almost any scenario, because you then have so many options to restructure your roster if you're bringing a guy in that has a higher upside than players that are capable at that same spot. I think that's always the way to go, and that's certainly the way we've seen the Thunder operate in past drafts, and I think we'll see the same thing again tonight. But I think unless you're already firmly established and you're a team that is looking specifically, say, for last season, the Denver Nuggets, a Christian Braun that comes in with hustle and brings a blue-collar approach, regardless of position, he was glue that helped them get to where they got and certainly excelled in the playoffs. But I think short of that, if you're not with a contending team that's that one small piece away, you've got to take the approach of layering talent on your roster, and then you adapt and adjust accordingly, I think is the wise way to go.
Matt Pinto, the voice of the Thunder, joining us here on our NBA draft watch party, live from Hopscotch, Hefner May, Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson, the legend Al Eschbach. And Matt, we've had some movement in the NBA over the last 24 hours, and I want to get your thoughts on the Kristaps Porzingis deal to Boston. It's become quite apparent what Washington's motivation is moving forward to clear some space and kind of build from the ground up. So Porzingis potentially will be a Celtic next season. Now, this trade was amended somewhat from the initial structure that we saw. We thought Malcolm Brogdon was going to be a Clipper. They were concerned about some medical information they received, apparently. So instead, it is going to be Marcus Smart who will go to Memphis in this deal. Tyus Jones will be headed to Washington, and they get some better draft compensation than what we saw the first time around. What are your thoughts on the framework of this deal for these teams?
That's no small shift, Gideon, given what Boston did. And I understand they were under the crunch of a deadline with Porzingis either opting in or opting out. They needed him to opt in to make the economics of the trade work. So they felt the heat of that. They pivoted about 10:30 last night, according to those in the know, because the Clippers were lingering on getting the additional information they needed medically on Malcolm Brogdon, and the Celtics decided to part with Marcus Smart. Now, I'm not in those four walls of that locker room. I don't know the inner workings of what goes on, but my perception of Marcus Smart is that he's an invaluable piece to what the Celtics have been about in their climb to an NBA Finals 2 years ago and last season to the Eastern Conference Finals with a viable shot to get there again. The defense he brings, the heart, the hustle, I think the willingness to be a vocal leader among guys that are not. I really question the move on Boston's part from that standpoint. Now, basketball-wise, it makes perfect sense. They need perimeter three-point shooting. They need a player that provides a matchup issue to free Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to do their thing as isolation, in essence, masterful players in the NBA. But they've got to recognize that they've got to go away from this three-point happy attack, recognizing they have two guys that can really get to the rim. I think Porzingis is another guy they can maximize in matchups. I like the move basketball-wise for Boston. I just wonder what it's going to do to their chemistry in the locker room.
What about your favorite player, Jordan Poole, going for Chris Paul?
Yeah. Some would say two of my favorite players, actually, in that transaction. Look, Poole's days were numbered as soon as the Draymond Green thing unfolded in camp last year, and there was not a strong, solid front behind him. I think that as we've watched him evolve as a young player in the NBA, we see the warts. I think they're maddening warts for a team that was thinking championship a year ago. Shot selection is awful. He refuses to get back and defend and hold his ground with consistency. So I think his days were numbered with the Warriors, and this sets them up with Chris Paul to take some of the tiring long minutes off of the legs of some of the veterans on that roster, including him, and also to potentially be in position to re-sign Draymond Green. I think it's a huge win for the Golden State Warriors, and good luck for the Wizards in developing Jordan Poole. I think he has clearly some skill, but you just don't know how his frame of mind syncs up with that skill at this stage of his career.
Matt, every player and everybody that's available goes to that's out there right now is linked to Portland in some way or another. Everybody's wanting to know what they're going to do with Damian, to help Damian Lillard. What do you see Portland doing in this mess through the draft, whether it's at that number 3 spot? Jeremy Grant's name's been put out there. Obviously, there's all kinds of rumors going on. What do you do if you're Portland?
I think it comes down to what is Lillard willing to tolerate in this draft. Would he okay with them taking Scoot Henderson and moving forward with Scoot Henderson as like the prime gem in what they've done to upgrade their roster? I don't think he would be. I think the only play here that helps Dame get calmed down if they maintain holding on to this third pick would be getting Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's a guy that, if his game translates in the way many believe it will, with his long-range shooting prowess, his athleticism to help out defensively, that along with resecuring Jeremy Grant, I think you've suddenly got some traction if you're Portland to move in a positive direction. They still have moves they've got to make, clearly, to placate Lillard. But I think if it's Scoot Henderson, I think Dame is out, or they've got to move Scoot Henderson because that's replication for them in the backcourt. I don't think Lillard would go for that for a second. The question becomes, would New Orleans be willing to part with a Zion Williamson or a Brandon Ingram to get Scoot Henderson, who apparently they're incredibly high on? I think that bears watching tonight for certain.
Matt, last question. Before you know it, we'll be into the free agency period. Who are some of the teams that you will have an eye on there? Of course, a lot has been talked about with Toronto and Pascal Siakam wanting to stay there, but the Raptors are certainly cautious about the fact with that 1 year left on his deal. So they've been a team that's pinpointed. You talked about Portland and the swings that they want to make in order to maintain that relationship with Damian Lillard. Who are the teams that you feel have the best chance to be active during that time?
I think the Rockets are a team that nobody can overlook. They're going about their rebuild in an unusual way. They've got a ton of very young players that really have not yet coalesced, and it's rare that they would after 2 seasons. They've got a ton of cap space guys, and that's a market that's attractive to NBA players, always has been. I don't think James Harden's going to wind up there. It looks like in an increasing way Philadelphia is gaining headway in securing him and keeping him in Philly. But I do think that's a market to keep an eye on, and a team that could make a pretty substantial quick leap if they secure a couple of veteran guys that it seems have interest and eyes on that situation. I think aside from that, you look at teams that have cap space, and they've got to determine whether or not they're willing to burn it in this new CBA to avoid the different aprons of tax, because you've really got to calculate not only in the immediate in the NBA right now, but if you're looking to generate continuity over the long haul, you've got to cast, in essence, the dollars you're spending with players you believe can carry your franchise over the long haul. So who are those guys in this free agent pool? What is Kyrie Irving's marketability? Does Dallas feel as though what all of us see, Stevie Wonder sees it, that he's not a compatible piece with Luka Doncic? Do they decide to try and orchestrate a sign and trade with him? I think those are some of the things that are going on right now beneath the surface in the NBA league-wide. It's not a big name free agency pool that's available this offseason. And I think the money is not going to be what those guys anticipate, because the league's moving to paying 3 guys big and then sort of filling in around them on the roster with lesser known younger players that are cheaper labor, frankly.
Yeah. Matt, great stuff as always. Appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening, and it should be a really fun night.
It's going to be, for certain. Buckle in, guys. It's going to be wild tonight. Thanks.
Matt.
That's the voice of the Thunder, Matt Pinto, joining us this evening. A little bit later on tonight, Curtis Fitzpatrick will be along. This will be after the Thunder's draft pick, and he'll provide his perspective on that. Might be a lot longer after the Thunder's draft pick, depending on when they, if they could move up, where they move up, or if they stay at that number 12 spot. We're having a great time. It's our NBA draft watch party here at Hopscotch, Hefner and May. Kitchen's open until midnight tonight. Bar's open until 2 a.m., where you can enjoy a great selection of craft, local beer, craft cocktails, whiskey. They offer catering for all events. Fantastic food out here. You're sure to find something. And this will be the place to stop in this fall. They've got the NFL Sunday tickets. You can watch any number of games out here. This place is absolutely awesome. Really, really fun place to do our draft lottery show. And then very grateful to be back here tonight as well. We got you until 10 o'clock this evening. So come out here and see us and watch the draft with us here on WWLS, The Sports Animal. coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. Gideon Hamilton, legend Al Eschbach, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch Hefner May, having a great time out here. You can check out our live stream as well all night long on our Sports Animal YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter page. So during Matt Pinto's interview, Brandon Miller went down to from minus 420 to minus 240, and he's now back up to minus 1,000.
Wow. Jeez.
So Miller is probably going number 2, I would think, with this jump, like just in the last 5 minutes.
So there's a bunch of
people are
degenerate gamblers throwing money at these guys now.
Well, when Wojo says it's so close to the thing.
Yeah, that's kind of gospel at this point.
Yeah, you're right. So that is. So now, what does Portland do? That's a big question right now.
The stuff that I have heard, what's weird is, and maybe it's about fit, but the stuff I've heard about Scoot is far more positive and far more, I don't want to say sure thing, but there's a lot more confidence from everybody that I hear about Scoot Henderson, the kind of player that he's going to be in this league versus Brandon Miller.
Well, that's why I asked Matt the question about fit versus best player available, because if Scoot's the best player available at 2, to me, you got to take him, even though it doesn't make as much sense. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, at the far end of things, you can trade him if you need to.
Here's the thing, and I don't. Although I will say, I watched Brandon Miller. I watched him against OU. Then I watched him in the NCAA tournament. He played terrible. So I can't let that, But
same thing happened with me and Anthony Edwards. I watched him 3 games that year. All of them were horrible, and then it kind of clouds your judgment a little bit.
Yeah, and you look at all the intangibles he has and everything, and but there's baggage there. But he's a great talent. Everything, he's a great talent. But you're right. Is Scoot Henderson? I mean, it's so again. What if Miller goes to? What's Portland going to do?
Yeah. Is there anybody else in this draft in between 3 and 12 that you feel good about? The Thompson twins, both of those guys are incredible athletes. Neither of them can shoot. Guys are already playing off of them, even in their pre-NBA play. You talked about Whitmore dropping a little bit. There have been some guys that have risen up the draft ladder. Koulibaly's one of those guys who.
Taylor Hendricks is in a lot has gone up.
Anthony Black used to be in that kind of late lottery area. Now he could go as high as 5 or 6. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Jarris Walker is another guy that was double digits for a while, and now he's shot up. The kid from Houston. So there's some guys that I think their workouts and interviews went pretty good.
The Kobe kid, the Kobe Buffkin kid as well.
He went way up.
He went way up as well.
A lot of people have him to go to the Thunder.
And I mean, here's the thing about him. I like his numbers. I like the upside. I like what he brings. But I don't like the fact that he's a guard. I don't like the fact that you're picking him at 12, and I don't like the fact that and listen, you and me, the 3 of us might be ready to give up on Trey Mann, but you've got him sitting there, and it's like, you draft another guy that's kind of that spot.
The thing about 12, and it's tough because at 12 you want to have somebody who is going to come in and play right away, and is going to be a member of this team and is going to help the team. But generally, in the draft, when you look at the history of the draft, a lot of these guys are not going to be in the league in 2 years, but generally those guys are going to come in and maybe they're going to play off the bench at the beginning of the season. And so whoever they draft, they're not going to say, boy, we got to find a way to make this work with Shea, Giddy, and whoever this is, because they're going to start.
Right.
They're not going to start. They're going to play as much as they can off the bench. Hopefully they'll be good enough to where they won't get sent down to the G League a lot. And they're going to be, kind of a second unit thing, which is there a real true second unit for the Thunder? Because Giddy and Shea will stagger and there'll always be somebody with the ball in their hands.
Here's the key, though, with Holmgren, he's going to cut some of these minutes down. Now, Gang, they're going to play him next year. They got to play him next year. He got to get minutes, does he not?
Yeah.
In the second, so.
Yeah, your point's well made, and I think I just can't help but look at this team and see the strides they made last year, getting into the play-in, and then it's like, okay, what what section, where does this team need the most help? And it's like, why would you not just go grab that? And
Right,
and to me, that's whether he starts or not.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a thing.
I agree too. I mean, a guard. I mean,
you just don't need a guard.
But what I'm saying is, if they draft a guard, it's not like you're not minimizing anybody else out there. Trey Mann doesn't need to play anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be a guy that is playing off the bench and just another guy with the ball in their hands. It's not going to be something that they're going to have, okay, J-Dub, Giddy, Shea, and whoever this is, Case and Wallace or whoever it is. All of you guys here, you have to figure out a way to make it work. He won't be on the floor with them a lot.
All right. No, that's fair. That's fair. Once again, we've talked about, and I heard you and Matt Ray was talking about this earlier, Al. It's like the word project at this point in the Thunder's growth. And I know, what Matt said, and I believe what Matt said about he's not going to lose sight of the big picture. And I get that. But the small picture is they have a chance to further what they did a year ago. And I just think that there are other guys that could really help them other than taking another project. And I'm not saying they're going to. I'm not saying they are or they're not. But like I said, I just think there are guys out there in this 7 to 12 range that I think could come in and really, really help this team.
There are not. By the way, we have kind of, I don't know if we've officially given up on the fact that they're going to move up. But last year they were drafted at 2 and 12. That's the thing, 2 and 12.
Yeah.
And they basically just bought another lottery pick at 11. The Orlando has 2 of them. They're at 6 and 11. They might be happy with whoever they have at 6. The Thunder offer them something down the road because they're going to have a glut of players going into this year's roster. Obviously, a lot of young guys that are still on their rookie deals. Oklahoma City could end up with somebody else if they don't think, and there really isn't anybody that I view in that area. Maybe I'm disagreeing with other teams that is like a franchise changing player. So if they want to bring them into the fold and they think it's relatively cheap, do it.
What's sort of puzzling me, a guy that we like, I haven't seen anybody connect Grady Dick with Oklahoma City.
No, and that part on the surface, that part really scares me because usually there's links everywhere. The part that keeps me upbeat on it is the Thunder are so tight-lipped.
I wonder if he worked out for them at all.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but the only people that that are connected to the Thunder are connected to the Thunder not because of the Thunder. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else is putting them in spots. But it's not, Oklahoma City's not saying anything. As far as the workout goes, I have no idea. And so that's going to be the interesting part about that number 12 pick. But, but I think Gideon's, you're right. You're right. We have kind of chalked it up to they're just going to make this 12th pick when we have no idea what's going to happen in the next hour and a half.
So you're about to leave us. What do you think is outside of the Thunder? Do you think there is any movement in the top 11 at all?
Portland is. I want to see what Portland's going to do. I mean, you talked about Orlando, and Orlando got. I like what their organization is doing right now.
I do too.
I think they've drafted really well. I like the direction they are going. The Portland thing is, and what Matt said. What does Lillard think about Scoot Henderson?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So. I want to see what happens there. What Indiana? You rep Indiana. I mean, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, whether they have 4, they have 4 picks, 3 picks left. I mean, they have a bunch of picks, and then everybody on their roster has been linked to trades, and so Indiana is one of those. When we talked earlier about who's going to be the bad teams, other than Washington, Indiana is on that teeter-totter.
Yeah.
And I think they could really, really go either way. I don't think they're going to be good regardless, but are they going to be middle of the pack, or are they going to just kind of mail it in and go, yeah, let's just be terrible?
Rockets have 2 in the top 20. Jazz have 2 in the top 16, and Orlando has 2 of the top 11. So those are some teams that could be candidates to move, but there are also some teams that are trying to, especially in Utah's case, build from the ground up. Colin Sexton's on the block, so they're getting rid of everybody, I think, except for Laurie, pretty much, and Kessler, who they just drafted.
Sure.
Al, what do you think the Thunder do tonight?
Let me look at my phone. Phone's not telling me no. I have no idea what they're gonna do. Just don't give me the two big band projects. That's all I'm asking.
I'm with you.
Jim said if the Frenchmen go, we're going to hear him scream from Vegas. Right here in Oklahoma City.
When we come back, we will have the first pick in the NBA draft. It's our watch party live here from Hopscotch, Hefner and May. Great spot. Scratch Kitchen open until midnight tonight. Bars open until 2, and they got a great selection of cocktails, whiskey, local beer. Fun stuff going on here at Hopscotch tonight. It is The Sports Animals live coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. Here we go. It is the 2023 NBA Draft. Full coverage here on WWLS The Sports Animal. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson coming to you from Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. Bobby, this is going to be an awesome place to spend the night tonight.
Absolutely. This is really, really cool. I have not been over here in a while, but this place, their food is outstanding. You come out here, great food, get great drink specials. We're in kind of a back little party room. We got a full bar right in front of us as well. So you can't go wrong. TVs all over the place. And the NBA draft is ready to go. Oklahoma City won't pick for a little while. At least we think they won't pick for a little while. But still, get here and get you a table and enjoy the draft night with us right here at Hopscotch.
Betting odds have locked. And the last that we saw, it was kind of hovering for a while. Brandon Miller going number 2, Scoot Henderson going number 3. But where? We don't know.
Nope.
And so we'll wait and see on that. That is the big mystery of tonight's draft, at least the one that we know about. So this is going to be an interesting evening. The commissioner will approach the podium here momentarily. Welcome everybody to the NBA draft. They're in Brooklyn, and then presumably 5 minutes later, due to network build and everything.
So TV controls this too. Is that
the San Antonio Spurs will select Victor Wembanyama, and this is going to be a formality, but it doesn't mean that it's not worth mentioning that this is really the first time ever. The build for Zion Williamson was immense. There was no question he was going to be the number 1 pick in that year's draft. Sure. It was an event when he played in college basketball games. Hey, Duke's on at 5 today. Okay, I'm going to take that, that type of deal. But that was a year out. This has been really the last thing that I can remember outside of LeBron James where this has been 2 years in the making. That we always look a year or two ahead, and then guys fluctuate and fall out of favor. And this has really been the first guy that I can remember in about 20 years that was going to be the guy 24 months ahead of time, and nothing changed.
No question. And he looks the part. I mean, he's 7'4", can do all the things that a guard can do. Obviously has the height. I loved watching. He did a drop step on a guy and did like he tiptoed and dunked the basketball. So he's once in a generation type of guy. And the last once in a generation type of guy that we saw was 20 years ago with LeBron James. So is he going to be as good as LeBron? Who knows? But I know that a lot of people have talked a lot about Victor Wembanyama, and I think it was Chris Broussard said the ceiling for this guy is greatest of all time. So that is you can't put any higher loft on a draft pick than you're going to put on this guy. Are they going to jinx him? Is he going to be a bust? I don't think so. Obviously, that's possible, but I can't wait to watch this kid play, and I can't wait to finally make it official that he's in the NBA, because I feel like he's been in the NBA for the last 2 years.
Well, the mocks I have up, of course, we're good friends with Kyle Boone from CBS, and they've got a number of mock drafts that kind of help us be aware of what type of talent these guys are, some of their strengths and weaknesses. And so we've got a bunch of those here in front of us just to kind of be more informed about who's supposed to be in that neighborhood. And some teams might reach way outside that based on their own intelligence and their own information and the workouts and interviews that they've had with these guys. The one that I really like is NBA Draft Room, because I think they have reasonable comps, like Scoot Henderson, Derrick Rose, Brandon Miller, Rudy Gay, or Danny Granger, Amen Thompson, prospect Sean Livingston, Jarris Walker, Paul Millsap. So not everybody has to be an NBA legend. Usually these comps are all, superstars in the NBA all the way down. Asir Thompson, Jason Richardson, Taylor Hendricks, Jeremy Grant. These seem a little bit more reasonable to what these guys eventually might become in their career, and their comp for Victor Wembanyama is 7'4" Durant. I mean, we just never have really seen anything quite like that. And Greg Popovich is probably the best candidate to find that correct balance between, oh my God, what are you doing taking 7 threes a game versus, also not taking a beating from guys that are probably going to be a little bit more physical than him at this level.
How lucky are the Spurs? I mean, how many great centers are they going to take at one? When you talk about Robinson, and obviously, Robinson was one of those. The team was terrible, and you have a lot of issues. You get David Robinson. The Duncan thing was a lot of injury. I mean, that Spur team was not just terrible, but they kind of fell victim to injury, and they did a lot of things and fell in the standings. Won the lottery. I think they were like 8th or 9th in the, or maybe a little bit lower than that. But the ping pong balls, they were not top 2 or 3, and they get Tim Duncan out of that deal. And then this draft, they get Victor Wembanyama. His highlights speak for themselves. His fadeaway jumper, I dare you to try to touch it. You're going to need a ladder to try to get to that thing. So it's going to be fun to watch. I know they've already announced he's not going to play in summer league.
Right.
I don't blame them at all for that. Ergo, Chet Holmgren.
Sure.
I don't think there's ever a reason to put a number 1 pick like this guy in any kind of exhibition.
Right.
You let him go when the NBA season comes, but I just cannot wait to watch this guy play NBA basketball.
Yeah, Chet got hurt in that other league, but you don't even want to take a chance.
Sure.
That this guy, you would miss out on a year of development here. This guy is good enough to where he doesn't have to necessarily be an incredible individual defender.
Mm-hmm.
He's so long, athletic, and has great defensive instincts that if he gets beat 10 times a night, he's going to end up blocking one of those shots.
Sure.
That type of deal. You can try to bring him away from the basket. That's what everybody tries to do with these bigs, 20, 23 feet or whatever. And he's going to get beat at the elbow and block 1 or 2 of those.
Right. Well, he's the only guy in NBA history, or in basketball history, to tip dunk his own missed 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. He straight up missed a 3, and he follows his shot, as you're taught to do, and then he goes up, catches it, and throws it down. I mean, just the athleticism this guy shows at 7'4". The only question mark with Victor Wembanyama is health, because when you're that tall, that thin, we've seen it. There's foot problems, there's leg problems. If he stays healthy, look out.
What do you expect from him? Because I don't think the numbers are necessarily going to jump off the page in a way that we talk about this quote-unquote generational talent. I think he might score in the low 20s, maybe low double digits in rebounding. He's not really that type of guy.
Right.
But again, where I think he is going to be just like unbelievable in terms of his effectiveness is defensively. I think his defensive numbers are going to be I don't think we are fully going to be able to comprehend those.
No, I think his block numbers are obviously going to be excellent. I think he'll rebound well, not because he's a great rebounder, but because where he's put defensively, he's not going to be able to help himself, but to go down there and get a lot of rebounds. I think double-double is definitely on the cards. I think low 20s is probably good. You look around some of the other guys that are on the team that, and obviously there's a lot of work to be done in San Antonio, way past Victor Wembanyama. But guys you like, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, who I'm not a real big fan of, but he played well as a rookie for the San Antonio Spurs. I know Popovich likes him, so he's there. Keldon Johnson, I am a fan of. I like his game. So they have some building pieces. Obviously, he'll be the anchor for the San Antonio Spurs team.
The other thing, when you look at San Antonio, they were so terrible defensively a year ago. And if he's just a good team defender here, you would think the deflections would also be enormous for him this year too. So defensively, this is where this team is going to be much, much better. And I don't know, would they win 20 games a year ago? Something in that neighborhood. They're obviously not going to jump up and be a play-in team unless they get a lot more help in free agency. But that's the difference in some of those close games, is just not giving up those types of possessions, the scores on all of those. So defensively, I think, is where they're really, really going to improve. Everybody is going to focus on, here's a 7'5" guy that has these incredible handles, for something we've never seen before from a guy that is this size and can shoot from this distance. And some of the things that he'll do around the rim, I'm sure, will be spectacular as well. But this is how he's going to help them win, is on the other side, him and Sohan, I think.
I think so. I think that's a good start to a front line for your team, especially on the defensive end. I think they're going to be improved defensively. Similarly, and I'm not comparing the two players. I can't wait to see them go head to head, by the way. But the way Chet Holmgren is going to help Oklahoma City, I think whether he can guard you one-on-one or not, he's so long and so tall, he's going to be able to help out defensively. And Wembanyama's taller and longer, and I think that he'll be able to really cover if one of his guards gets beat, which that happened a ton. Then I think you'll have a situation where he'll be able to come over and erase quite a few shots.
Yeah. Just avoided a major faux pas. The guy that walked by us wearing the same pullover that I have. Good thing I didn't wear that. Let's go to the commissioner.
In the 2023 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama from Nanterre, France.
I'm shocked. I'm just absolutely
What?
floored. That guy? Really? No, there it is. He's officially in the NBA after 24 months. Victor Wembanyama goes number 1 to the San Antonio Spurs, and he can now start building on what people think could be one of the greatest careers in NBA history.
Well,
it's a touch early.
this is not only going to be, we think, a great basketball player, we think that this guy is going to be a mythologically celebrated basketball player, in that some of the things that he is going to do, like the follow fadeaway 3 dunk,
Right.
we just never have seen before, or probably never imagined were really possible. And you talked about him throwing out the first pitch the other night, and that he, looked like you holding a golf ball. I mean, his fingers met each other
Yes.
on the other side when he held this baseball.
It was a terrible pitch, too, by the way.
So this is the other thing that San Antonio hasn't had in quite some time, is somebody who is exciting, somebody who you want to watch. And for a while, they were they're one of the best teams in the NBA. They did eventually morph into a team that played a really crowd-pleasing style of basketball with Diaw and Parker, and those guys passed the ball quite a bit. That was late in Duncan's run when they were contending for championships. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, for a few years before that, they were really difficult to watch, quite honestly. They depended on their defense, but for a while they morphed into a team that, under the radar, was pretty exciting and played a really pleasing brand of basketball. And it's been a long time since we've gone to that, where somebody is like, has League Pass open in front of them and says, okay, what are the games tonight? I want to watch the Spurs.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's been a long time.
And I think not only has it been a long time since that's happened, it'll be really interesting how many national TV games they get.
Yeah.
Because
you have to bump it up.
Absolutely, you do.
5,
Absolutely.
6, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So, yeah,
if not
sure,
more.
if not more. And I think that Oklahoma City will get one of those, because of size, I think they're going to want to see Wembanyama and
That's
Chet
a good
Holmgren.
point. Yep.
So I think that's an automatic national TV game, at least one for OKC. But yeah, 7'5", just an unbelievable player. Wears size 20.5 shoe. So good luck picking one of those up at the neighborhood Foot Locker. But this is, I'm ready to watch this guy play. Like I said earlier, not going to play in the summer league, but he is going to be somebody that you have to watch. If you don't get to watch him, if you don't have League Pass, or if he's not on TV, he's the guy you're going to watch SportsCenter, and they'll lead with him more times than not.
There is so much hype and anticipation about this player. When was the last time, maybe beyond Zion, that you can remember that you thought to yourself, not only did the Spurs season ticket office go nuts after he was drafted, you know who else got a call? Every other team for tickets for when the schedule comes out that day.
Yep.
Season ticket offices, especially single game ticket offers for when the Spurs come into town. It's going to be tough to get a ticket to those games this year for every team in the NBA.
Absolutely. It's must see. It's a must see. So if you're thinking about getting one of those Oklahoma City Thunder ticket packages, I highly recommend you do so. Maybe you include the San Antonio Spurs for the first time in a few years as one of those games. I don't know what tier they'll be on, but if you do it right now, maybe you can steal one before they decide, well, we might move this team up just a little bit, because it's going to be a lot of fun watching these guys, watching this Victor Wembanyama guy. And then who knows, the Spurs, if we know one thing about the San Antonio Spurs, they're not done. They're not going to just draft this guy and go, we'll see what we got. They're going to be aggressive, not over the top aggressive,
right?
But they're going to do things to try to help him out and help him have a successful rookie career.
So now we get to what has been one of the more interesting developments in this year's NBA draft, and that is, who is Charlotte going to take at number 2? There have been two highly coveted players, Brandon Miller from the University of Alabama, who was arguably the best college basketball player a year ago, Scoot Henderson, who played in the G League a season ago, who was going to go where, and would another team be able to pry either of them away from the hands of the Hornets and the Portland Trail Blazers, respectively. We looked at the odds makers prediction earlier today, and right before the shutdown, prior to the draft, Miller was the guy going to the Hornets. If it's him, what could he provide to the Charlotte team who was decimated by injury a year ago?
Well, I mean, he can do a lot of things offensively. I mean, he's got good size at 6'9". He can play make. He can shoot the basketball from the outside. Your comps earlier, Danny Granger, who was a very good wing player. I think a lot of the things, and you and I via text made fun of him a lot for his comments about Paul George. I think one of the things he was doing is he was setting himself up, because I think he's a little bit like Paul George.
Sure,
I think the way he plays is a lot like like PG-13. And I'm no big Paul George fan, but Paul can definitely play, and I think that Brandon Miller can play as well. And I just think that this goes back to that conversation of best player versus best fit. Maybe Charlotte feels it's the same player. Maybe if they think Brandon Miller's the best guy, that's what you go for. That's what you go with. If they think Scoot Henderson's the better guy, but Brandon Miller's the better pick or the better fit, then that's where this thing gets interesting, and that's why those numbers have been bouncing around on FanDuel.
Remember, going into this year, they hovered around the play-in at the end of last season, and they're bringing all these guys back, and then the Miles Bridges thing happened.
Yep.
Miles is one of the most improved players in the NBA. He was becoming a really exciting young talent in this league. They lose him for the entire season. LaMelo barely plays, gets hurt really early in the year, misses a vast majority of the season, comes back toward the end, then they decide to park him at the end. He got hurt again also. Hayward continues to deal with a variety of ailments, as he's had almost every single year throughout his career. So it was a team that was interestingly constructed but could never get healthy. If they have everybody on the floor, could this be better? Here's the commissioner.
In the 2023 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller from the University of Alabama.
So it is Brandon Miller to Charlotte, and if he can develop into a two-way player, that's what's really going to help the Hornets out. They don't necessarily need the scoring.
Right.
They need somebody who can try to stand in front of somebody else, and that's something that they really, to be honest with you, haven't had the last 2 years. They won plenty of games 2 years ago. Last year we talked about all the injuries, but this team defensively has been a disaster under new ownership, the way that they're going to be going into this season. So maybe there's a culture change coming to the Hornets.
Well, I think that he's one of those guys, and you'll hear me say this throughout this draft, because there are some really good defensive players in this draft. Then there are other guys that are really good players that try defensively, maybe, obviously not on the NBA level, not there yet, but actually give you effort. And I think he'll give you effort on the defensive end. He's got length. I think he's got the athleticism, and then offensively, he can flat out score. He's one of the better jump shots in this draft. I think he's going to be a really fun offensive player to watch. LaMelo Ball just got a brand new play toy in Brandon Miller. I think those two guys are going to really light some scoreboards up, because Brandon Miller doesn't mind moving fast, and LaMelo Ball's ready to push the tempo.
And they have talked to him enough to where they feel comfortable that everything is behind him, and there are not going to be any kind of character issues. And despite what we have had fun with over the last couple of days, they feel good about this young man's future. Up next, number 3 is the Portland Trail Blazers. And before we talk about their pick, I want to tell you about the great place that we're at right now, Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. Scratch Kitchen open until midnight tonight. That's about the time that the draft will end. Our coverage will be over at 10 o'clock. Curtis Fitzpatrick's going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour to talk about what Oklahoma City did. The Thunder have the number 12 pick, so we're just a few picks away from what Oklahoma City is going to do if they don't move up. but a lot of great drink specials as well. Great selection of craft, local beer, craft cocktails, whiskey. They do catering for all different kinds of events. Great brunch, too. Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. until 3 o'clock. They got pool tables, gaming, darts, played that before over here. So this is an awesome place, and we appreciate the opportunity to be out here at Hopscotch. You should also check us out on our Sports Animal Twitter feed right now at Sports Animal, also our Sports Animal Facebook page and Sports Animal on YouTube. We've got a live cast going on right now, so when the Thunder do eventually draft somebody that Bobby doesn't want at 12, you'll see his head hit this table.
We're going to exercise the poker face. Or at least we're going to attempt to exercise the poker face. We'll see what happens. Depends on who's there at 12. How about that?
That's true. If there's somebody that you really want, there aren't more than a couple of guys that I feel really passionate about in this year's draft. And there's one that's definitely going to be there, and I think there's one that's definitely not.
Yeah, that's probably true. I have two guys, and if one or both of them are there at 12, there might be a little bit of perspiration on my forehead as we get ready to watch the commissioner take the podium. But, hey, we're still a little ways away. We got to deal with what Portland's going to be doing here coming up. What are they going to give Damian Lillard?
So I don't get the criticism of can these guys coexist. Damian Lillard is not John Stockton. I mean, these guys don't dribble the ball up the floor for 12 seconds, call out a play, and then make a decision. Scoot Henderson apparently is going to be electrifying with the ball in his hands. Lillard can come off of screens. They want to get rid of Simons to make Dame a primary option here. So why make him bring the ball up? Why not put him in better positions to succeed if you can do that with another primary playmaker? So I know they're both guards. I know they're both small guys, but this is a different kind of player in Scoot Henderson, and you've heard it from all the evaluations of these guys that have been scouts for a long period of time. Guys like this don't come in the league very often, is what they say.
I think Scoot Henderson's a fantastic player. I think the thing that worries me a little bit with the relationship with him and Damian Lillard, I agree with you, and you might be able to put some more wear on Lillard's tires if he's not dribbling the ball and doing those things. But also by taking the ball out of his hands, you're eliminating a lot of those 30-foot, pull-up threes, some of the things Lillard is so good at. I think that when we get to a guy like Damian Lillard, his entire thing is controlling the basketball. And so if you take the ball out of his hands, he can no longer control the basketball. And it's a little bit similar to the conversations you and I had a year or two ago about is Shea going to play the two, or is he going to who's going to be the primary ball handler? At the end of the day, the ball is going to be in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's hands, and I think to me that, and it's a similar case here. You want the ball in Lillard's hands as much as possible, and does Scoot Henderson deter that, or does he help that out? That's what they've got to figure out.
Yeah, either team, whether it was Charlotte or Portland, was going to have to make this work.
Right.
But LaMelo Ball, in a way that Damian Lillard doesn't, because of his ability to facilitate and run everything that they do, I think that you can use Lillard off the ball more certainly than you could LaMelo.
Agree with that completely.
And so maybe that's why this is a better fit, as Portland has made their selection. Let's hear from the commissioner.
With the third pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Scoot Henderson from Marietta, Georgia, and the NBA G League's Team Ignite.
You have a suit like that at home? That looks like
he borrowed that from me. As a matter
something
of fact.
Glenn Campbell wore on the Good Time Hour in '77 or something like that.
That is some blingy stuff Scoot Henderson's rocking tonight.
Probably break now.
It looks fantastic.
All right, coming up next, the number 4 pick. This is going to be interesting. Houston Rockets on the clock. They've got 2 picks in the top 20. Detroit, Orlando, the Pacers right around the corner, and OKC lurking there at 12. Will they move up? We'll let you know when we come back to Hopscotch. It's our coverage here on the Sports Animal, the 2023 NBA Draft.
Did you know that feeling sluggish?
Animals coverage the 23 NBA draft. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. Got some of our team enjoying some great food. I think you're about to join them coming up here in just
We're going to
a little
discover the dessert menu here in just a little bit. We're going to test drive that bad boy. I'm ready for that.
That probably will include some of the best picks of the night. And we've got a great crowd out here on hand. Saw some Thunder shirts, Thunder jackets a little bit earlier out there. This place is absolutely huge. Great patio dining as well out here at Hopscotch. They're open until 2 a.m. tonight. The bar area kitchen's open all the way until midnight. So you have to work late tonight, want to come out here and catch the Thunder's pick, you can still certainly do that at Hefner and May. We are up to number 4, and this is going to be the Houston Rockets, and they're kind of in this weird mode.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in a guy who we think can actually coach these guys, Ime Udoka, instead of Steven Silas, who I think really had his hands full with this group of young guys and might be in more of a veteran-seeking mode here in the offseason, but they do have 2 picks, as we said, in the top 20.
Is Ime Udoka, to me, this is the story of the Houston Rockets. Is Ime Udoka a strong enough personality to walk into this locker room and go, you young pups are going to do what I tell you to do? If he is, they have talent.
Yeah.
You know, Jalen Green, obviously, it can really, really score. They've got guys up front, Alperen Şengün. We've talked about a ton. Jabari Smith really had a better second half of his rookie year. He kind of, after a slow start, what kind of pro is he going to be? Jayshawn Tate is out there as well. That's why a lot of people think they're going to go with a guard here. And so we'll see if that comes to fruition. If those guys, I like those guys individually, but they've had no direction.
Yeah,
they're a ship without a rudder. If he can come in there, Ime Udoka being him, if Udoka can come in and go, okay, fellas, this is my way or the highway, and these young guys will buy into that, then I think they could be decent.
Yeah,
in a short amount of time. It's just, but to me, just looking at some of the personalities in that locker room, I think that's a big if.
The last couple of years, they've been kind of like a submarine without a gaming controller, sort of.
You went there.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what it's been like.
True. It is true.
Eamon Thompson is on every mock draft that we're looking at right now at number 4. Guy's an unbelievable athlete, and he's such an incredible athlete that he can't shoot at all, and he's probably still going to be the number 4 pick in the draft. Here's the commissioner.
With the 4th pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the Houston Rockets select Amen Thompson from Oakland, California, an overtime elite.
His twin brother by his side, congratulating him, and he will be headed to the Houston Rockets. So more youth and athleticism for him. NBA Draft Room comps him to Sean Livingston coming out of high school. I remember what an exciting prospect he was before he got injured as that kind of talent. Here's the problem for overtime elite last year. These guys are already playing him under the free throw line when he has the ball on the perimeter, and that's got to change.
It does have to change. He's going to have to learn how to shoot a basketball. That could be a challenge for this team. Now, athletically, like I said, the guys we mentioned earlier, he kind of solidifies that backcourt along with Jalen Green. That'll be your backcourt, and then you have those guys up front. They're a bunch of thoroughbreds. So they run, and they're going to do a lot of things athletically if they can. But, yeah, he's going to have to learn how to shoot a jump shot. And when he does, we'll see what kind of career he could have. But he's a fantastic prospect for a team that has no expectation. So they're going to give him time to grow and give him time to develop a jump shot.
I think there is some legitimacy to the fact that James Harden misses the Houston environment and atmosphere for a variety of different reasons, both on the court and off.
Yes.
But I also think there's probably something to the fact that he's like, hey, if you don't pay up, I'll just go back here and kind of spend the rest of my days, kind of doing what I do. So I think there's an interesting dynamic there. I think it would be kind of strange to see him wind up back for the Rockets.
I think the Houston Rockets are run poorly. I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it PG rated. I think they're run poorly. If they bring James Harden back, then I won't leave it PG rated. It would be the dumbest thing in the world to bring James Harden back. I don't care what kind of player he's turned into. adopted more of that point guard role with Embiid or all that stuff. The second you get him away from Joel Embiid, he's going to go back to the guy that jacks up a million shots, scores a bunch of points, and he will completely stunt the growth of the Houston Rockets. Whatever you think that growth is, whether it's minimal or significant, he'll stunt that growth, and that's just something I can't imagine Houston fans being all that excited about.
They could be a player for one of the cast-offs from Milwaukee,
Sure.
Because the Bucks are too cash-strapped to keep everybody. And so I think the Rockets, not necessarily that they're going to have they're certainly not even going to challenge to play some extra basketball next year, but I do think they'll be better than the product we've seen the last couple of years.
Oh, I do too. And listen, the Thunder got to see kind of the better part of the Houston Rockets, as the Rockets went 3-1, I think, against them last year. So
saw their ceiling.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's exactly right. And now their ceiling got a little bit higher with Thompson. But I think that like you said, they're not challenging for anything. They're going to sit back and relax, and they're going to have a season with those 4 young players, all of which individually you can say a lot of good things about. Now, collectively, can they do anything? And I think that's what they have to learn, and they have to kind of grow this team together, get them used to playing with each other.
Our team, Josh Lee and Cisco, are doing a great job tonight. If you want to check out our live feed, you got us on your computer. Let's see what's going on out here at Hopscotch. Hear the reaction at 12. That's always really fun when the Thunder make a pick. You kind of get an early read on the popularity of what's going on. You check us out on our Sports Animal Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube pages. 5 is interesting, and you want to talk about misery. It was being a Pistons fan the last couple of years, going through all the injuries, the growing pains that they went through. Cade obviously missing for most of the season a year ago. But you get there. All of it was worth it to have the worst record in the NBA and have the best odds, along with 3 other teams, of getting Wembanyama. But at least you knew, unlike everybody else, that we've got the highest floor of anybody. We're not dropping below 5th, and they got the 5th.
They got the 5th pick. I know. The Detroit Pistons have not been living right due to injury or due to lottery luck or whatever. They do have a brand new coach that they are paying exorbitant amount of money for, and I love Monty Williams, but holy Moses, $13 million a year or whatever that was. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. But they do get Cade Cunningham back from injury. You and I both like him. I think that it'll be, once again, this is a work in progress for them. I don't think they're one of the worst teams in the NBA if they do stay healthy, but they also can't win anything. So they're kind of in Eastern Conference purgatory at this point. They do help those out at, on the long term, it may start tonight.
That offer that they bumped up to because he turned them down the first time. That was so live tour like that they're probably going to let Monty wear shorts when he coaches.
Sam Humphries is on the phone. He'd like to talk to you.
I mean, that really was. They made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. They won 17 games a year ago. Who's out there that could help this team? Anthony Black is be a guard. I think Cade's got the ball in his hands quite a bit. Jaden Ivey certainly will as well.
No
so
doubt.
I don't know if they go there. Jarris Walker, Aserton, who's the brother of Amen. Here's the commissioner.
With the 5th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Asar Thompson from Oakland, California, an overtime lead.
Back-to-back. So Asar Thompson, who played alongside his brother a year ago, another player who 6'5", he's going to be slotted in, you would think, as more of a wing position, but probably won't have the ball in his hands as much as those other 2 guys that we talked about this year. So he'll have an opportunity to grow beneath them. But I get much like his brother, electrifying athlete who did have trouble shooting it a season ago, although he improved where Amen really didn't. In that regard. By the way, I do want to mention before we talk about this fit and how this works out for the Pistons, how unbelievable that is to have 2 people in the same family. show that work ethic and get to the point where you're 2 of the top 5 draft pick in one class.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And we've seen twins drafted before. The Morris boys, Marcus and Markeith from Kansas. Still surprised Markeith went first, by the way. But that being said, we've seen that before. Never seen it top 5. I mean, just the complete, just absolute athleticism on that family is just amazing. I cannot imagine the pride that mom and dad are feeling having 2 guys, having your 2 kids drafted 4 and 5 in the NBA. That's outstanding.
What do you think about this for Detroit? I don't know about this one.
I'm not sure about it either. I think that once again, the jump shot's going to come into play because you've got other guards. Now, the one thing that I don't mind about it is, once again, he's the best. If you think he's the best player in the draft at this point, you take him. And also, when your point guard's as big as Cade Cunningham is, you can afford to put another guard out there. So you kind of run that 3-guard look because your point guard's, well, how tall is Cade? He's 6'8", something like that. So you can afford to put him out there at that 3rd guard spot. And I think that that's kind of what the Pistons are looking at. Get up and down the court, continue to, the new NBA of not having as many big guys and just throwing positionless basketball out there. I think Sark could get the point. Obviously, like you said, unbelievably athletic. And if he can develop that jump shot, then look out.
Alonzo and LaMelo were both drafted in the 5, obviously, in different years.
Right.
So, this is a really exciting time for that family. A really admirable accomplishment. Thunder around the corner. We are now to number 6, and this is the first of 2 picks in the top 11. The Orlando Magic. Nice young core. Franz Wagner, I'm a massive fan of him.
Yep.
Paolo Banchero, who I think did what he was going to do a season ago, needs to add some versatility to his game. But as a scorer, he's tremendous. Needs to become a better perimeter shooter and needs to play better defense, quite honestly. Markelle Fultz is this reclamation project that I was really efficient a year ago.
Yep.
And so I think this is a team that is headed in the right direction. But these 2 picks are going to be very important for their future.
They are, and it'll be interesting to see if I think they need to go guard. I mean, out of all the names you just mentioned, you didn't name too many guards other than Markelle Fultz. So to me, that's where the need is for the Orlando Magic. There's some guys there in the draft that you could take.
Anthony Black
would be one of those guys. The guard from Arkansas, 6'6", so he's got great size at that guard spot. That would be fantastic. So there are guys there. It'll be interesting what they do there, and do they want to pick 6 and 11?
Right.
To me, if they get their guy at 6, I don't know who that is, but if they get their guy at 6, maybe they might move off of that 11. We'll see coming up later in the draft. But I think that Anthony Black would be a really, really nice pick right here for the Orlando Magic.
NBA Draft Room's comp is a bouncy Josh Giddey.
Okay.
So now Josh, he has that kind of vision. Fans of Arkansas a year ago are obviously familiar with Anthony Black game. We got one of them in-house here at Hopscotch right now.
No, I like his game. There's no doubt about it. And he'd be a really, really nice pick in the spot. But we're the funny thing is, going into this draft, you knew Wembanyama was 1. You knew a combination of Miller or Henderson 2-3. And by most mock drafts, the Thompson twins were 4-5.
Yeah.
Now we've reached, I have no idea.
All right, the commissioner approaching the podium. Let's listen in.
NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select Anthony Black from the University of Arkansas.
So Anthony Black does go number 6 out of Arkansas, and he will be wearing an Orlando Magic jersey a year ago. And the reason why we thought if they're going to go guard, they're going to go him is you really have to go way down until you get to Kobe Buffkin, Jalen Hood-Scafino, Cason Wallace. I mean, these guys, they could surprise us, pop up here in the next few picks, but generally those guys are regarded as later lottery or just outside the lottery, those types of guys. Anthony Black was a guy that really shot up the charts over the last couple of months.
He has no chance of getting a hat on that head either.
I think he can do it.
You think he can do it? You think he can get a hat on that head? I don't know. That is some hair there and good in his suit, but
he's going to need a 9 5/8 maybe. But
They make hats that big. I should know. I have a big myself, not quite 9 5/8. No, I like Anthony Black for this team because of his versatility. He's, like I said, 6'6". He can do things he's actually a willing defender, actually can do things on the defensive side and can play make. And when you have Pablo Banchero, when you have Franz Wagner, when you have the walking double-double Wendell Carter Jr., you need guys to kind of set them up. You know, and I think you talked about Paolo adding dimensions to his game. You can't add dimensions to your game if you have to do all the work.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't have to do all the work. He's got a guy that can do the work on the perimeter, hook him up underneath, and maybe develop some things offensively. So I think this is an outstanding pick. He grew an inch, by the way, from my notes for the draft. I said they listed him at 6'7". I like this pick for Orlando.
And this could consolidate that guard position. Remember, for a while, Cole Anthony is there. Jalen Suggs, who has had an unfortunate start to his career with injuries time and time again the last couple of years. He was trending in the right direction. So I do like some of the guys that they have there, but they're going to give this guy an opportunity to play, and that might make room for some deals that could be done for them this season as well.
Well, and Cole Anthony to me screams six-man. I mean, that's his role on this team, because when he's hot, look out.
Yeah.
But when he's not hot, get him off the court. And that's kind of what you look for in a bench guy. So now you've got a lead guard that can go out there and do some things and hopefully turn into a really, really nice point guard. Like I said, you love his build at 6'6", 6'7", and you love his ability. It's a matter of getting out there. Al said this earlier. I completely agree. I like the direction Orlando's going in. It might be a slow burn to get there, but I like the way they're going.
So I want to tell you about a dynamic that we have got going on. I think this is probably common sense to everybody, is we know we will know who is going to be picked about 3 minutes before the pick comes down.
Right.
But we're not going to do that because the experience of listening to this live with the commissioner is, that's what everybody tunes in for. I will tell you from the information that we have prior to pick 7 for Indiana is that this pick will be traded.
Okay, good.
So this will be the first trade, and we heard that Indiana could be a team would consider making a move in this year's NBA draft, and maybe Oklahoma City would be a part of that conversation, at least on the phone with some of these teams. The Thunder are not the team that are involved in this trade. So we'll hear who they select and where they're going. We'll tell you about that coming up here in just a little bit, but this will be the first move of this draft, and kind of goes along with the trend of Indiana. All of these guys are up in the air, but it seems like they want to get better right away to sync up with the timeline of Tyrese Halliburton.
Right, and that's, to me, the most important part, because it does seem like that, but yet they still dangle Buddy Hield. They still dangle Miles Turner. They've been connected to a lot of different trades for different picks in the draft. They've got 7. They've got 26. They've got 29. And then they go into the second round. They've got 2 in the second round. So they got 5 picks left. And let's see who they get at pick number 7.
With the 7th pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Bilal Coulibaly from Courbevoie, France.
So Bob just breathed a huge sigh of relief because he's off the board for the Thunder.
Yes,
and he will be traded to the Washington Wizards.
Really?
This is according to Shams Charania. So we're going to break that down coming up here in a little bit. Maybe get some more information on what is involved in the deal. Just a few picks away from where Oklahoma City is scheduled to select at number 12. Have a great time out here at Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. Gideon, Hamilton, Bobby Tom. Sports Animals coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. '23 NBA Draft. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. I want to thank our great team out here, Josh Lee, Cisco, Preston Poole back in studio for doing a great job. Check us out on our streaming as well, the Sports Animal Twitter feed, YouTube page, and Facebook page. And hello to all of you who are watching it there. But for those of you who are listening, we left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger there. Washington moved up, but they moved up from number 8 to get to 7. And they moved up with the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers go back to number 8. So this pick goes to Indiana. Let's listen in.
Pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, Washington Wizards select Jarris Walker from the University of Houston.
So these teams traded places. Washington, who just got a boatload of second rounders, sent 2 of them to Indiana for that privilege. And they probably had conversations of, who are you taking? Who are you taking? We better move up and get this guy. So Coulibaly, who is Wembanyama's teammate, 1 week wonder with insane measurables that all Thunder fans feared OKC taking. He is off the board at number 7 to Washington. And Jarris Walker from Houston, who's kind of a refrigerator, but lengthy, athletic as well. We saw some of his a year ago. He will be headed to Indiana, where I think he'll fit in well.
I think he'll fit in well too. He's 6'7". He's listed as a guard, but he's kind of that. He is kind of a bruising type of guard, and that's exactly what the description says. Strong, bruising, big man, thrives on defense, very raw offensively, but can do some things, as you saw when he played with Houston. He doesn't mind creating. I'm not saying he's Draymond by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a big man that likes to try to create for other guys, and that's what Indiana is going to be looking at. Who's his teammates going to be? I have no idea, but that's what you're seeing now as on TV. He is hugging his Oklahoma coach, Kelvin Sampson.
One of your faves.
I love Kelvin. I little blackjack with Kelvin in my day.
Yeah. He texted you quite a bit too, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go with that. Makes me sound more important. So that's good.
The draft room comp on Jarris Walker is Paul Millsap. Sounds pretty good.
I like Paul Millsap. Millsap in his prime is a good player. So absolutely. If you can get a Paul Millsap type of guy, especially with his youth, and if he starts that way, then look out. 6'7", just under 6'8", just a really, really nice player. Does not mind the basket. Does not mind using that size, which you love in the NBA.
How are you feeling if you're a Wizards fan right about now?
I feel sorry for the 3 of them that are left.
They're getting all kinds of calls.
There's just
can we give up our season tickets?
That's exactly. I want to give all my tickets except for the Spurs games so that I can see Wembanyama. No, the Wizards are a disaster. They've kind of been a disaster. They've been the last talk of the league for a long time. They just had Bradley Beal to fall back on. Now they don't have that. He's gone. Porzingis is gone. Kuzma's going to leave at some point. He's a free agent. So if you're Bilal Coulibaly, I probably screwed that up, but it's close enough. What are you walking into other than Jordan Poole?
So here has been the NBA draft to this point. We're just a couple of picks away from OKC obviously, Victor Wembanyama went first. Brandon Miller second to Charlotte. Scoot Henderson goes to Portland. Amen Thompson goes number 4 to the Rockets. His twin brother, Asar Thompson, goes number 5 to Detroit. Anthony Black from Arkansas will be with the Orlando Magic next season. They took him with the number 6 overall pick. And then this trade we just talked about, Bilal Coulibaly, goes 7 to the Wizards via trade, and the Pacers end up with Jarris Walker. The Utah Jazz are on the clock. This will be the first of 2 picks that they have in the next 7. So Utah trying to get better through the NBA draft here, and they got a lot of slots to fill.
They do have a lot of slots. There's no doubt about it. And here's the thing, Utah's really interesting because they were supposed to be really terrible a year ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were supposed to be just net level bad. And then Lauri Markkanen decided, hey, guess what? I can play. And so he becomes an all-star. He does some good things. The draft is good for them last year as well. We'll see if the draft is good for them this year as they look to make their pick at number 9. But I think there's a lot of question marks, and there's a lot of spaces to fill.
Yeah.
If you're a Utah Jazz front office guy, you look at, there's no position other than that wing position where Markkanen goes and the center position. The other 3 spots wide open. You can take whoever you want.
And that's why this is probably going to be an ideal spot for whoever lands because they're going to get an opportunity to play right away, you would think. Taylor Hendricks is in that. It's inevitable. He's not going to be there for the Thunder, unfortunately. But Cam Whitmore, Kobe Buffkin, Derek Lively, you would think they wouldn't go big here, but they might.
It's breaking now if you want to.
And Jalen Hood-Scafino, Jordan Hawkins, Cason Wallace. These are some of the guys that are mocked around this area as Utah. We're awaiting the pick coming up here in just a little bit. Your thoughts on the draft so far? As there's been a little bit of shuffling of the deck from what we've seen, but not too much.
Not too much. I mean, I've always wondered, and one of these days, if the Thunder Brass are listening, I promise I won't take my phone into the room. But one of these days, I would love to be in a draft room like that, just to watch how things react. Because I'd love to sit in the Wizards room. I'm probably the only person that just uttered that sentence. But, to trade up one place, can't you just call Indiana and go, hey, who you picking? And if they say, maybe they said, we're taking Bilal Coulibaly.
Right.
All of a sudden, well, we want him. Well, if Indiana was so set on taking him, you wouldn't trade him.
Right.
So the trading up and down one spot makes no sense to me. You see it all the time, but it makes no sense to me. But that being said, I think the draft is pretty much gone,
right,
according to plan so far.
And that's a relatively small price to pay, even if they didn't think he was. If they said, "Hey, who are you picking?" We're not telling you.
Right.
You want to give up 2 second-rounders to flip spots?
Just
like,
make sure.
because Indiana might have had a couple of different guys in mind there, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
Get a couple extra picks and see what happens. But listen, I think we'll see about Bilal Coulibaly. He might end up being the best player in the draft. Who knows? But I just don't. As somebody who watches and covers the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm glad he's off the board to where that's not an option.
So we've got the Utah Jazz up next. We're hanging out here at Hopscotch. Hefner and May. Kitchen's open until midnight tonight. Bobby's about to enjoy some dessert in front of him. That looks excellent, Bobby. But they
hold
got
up to the camera. So
fantastic scratch kitchen on our Facebook, Twitter, and
I don't
YouTube
think I've
pages.
ever done that in radio. That's crazy.
We got a great French dip out here. Meatloaf is famous out here. The pot pie, beer cheese, lettuce wraps, burgers, sandwiches. They've got a lot of different things for you to try.
Apparently the Brussels sprouts are good. That's what Nicole told me.
Trabe told me to try the French onion soup.
Okay,
it's
yes.
one of his favorites.
Yeah, French onion soup I will eat, but Nicole came in touting the Brussels sprouts, and I was like, yeah, I'll let you have those. You go right ahead. I'll take the chocolate cake
I'll save you some.
instead of the Brussels sprouts. Thank you very much.
This place is awesome. Come out here and see us. Like I said, they're open late tonight as we've got the NBA draft. We're here until 10 o'clock this evening. Oklahoma's right around the corner, and so far some of our favorites are still on the board here for OKC.
Or so.
Well, I mean, we'll see if Taylor Hendricks is off the board. If he is the guy for Utah, how do you see him? I think he could fit in anywhere, and I think that'd be a pretty formidable front court. He's 6'8". Walker Kessler seems like he's going to be the guy. Let's find out who they take if they go in a different direction.
With the 9th pick, the 2023 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Taylor Hendricks from UCF.
Damn it.
It was the first one of those the night. Probably not the
there's
last.
Not another one four picks from now.
I like Taylor Hendricks a bunch. I mean, that is.
And he's not going to go in and score 3 years from now. He's not going to be in the All-Star game, I think. But I just thought he would work. He would function so well in a gap that Oklahoma City does not have.
Right. I agree with that.
And so that's why I would have loved to see him in Thunder uniform. Maybe he worked out for the Thunder and they absolutely hated him, or they hated him throughout the process. I'll never know. But he is off the board. So
who's his comp?
His comp is Jeremy Grant.
Okay, there you go.
Which I could see. All right, we're going to step aside. Coming up next, we will have the Mavs at number 10, and we will have the Thunder's pick at number 12. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sports Animals coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. And May, it is the 2023 NBA Draft. Gideon, Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here having a great time. And I mentioned the Thunder's pick was right around the corner.
Yep.
The Thunder's pick is next. So Dallas is going to make the next selection. Adam Silver is going to come to the podium and say, with the 10th overall pick, the Dallas Mavericks select. And whoever that player is will be playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder next year. So the Thunder have, I haven't seen what the Thunder have given up yet, but they've gotten Davis Bertans and the 10th pick back from Dallas. So whoever you see or hear coming in next, that will be the Thunder's first round pick, unless they position around or get some other ones. They have moved from 12 to 10 for Dallas, and I don't know if that's a swap and the Mavs are going to be at 12. I'm not sure, but Oklahoma City has moved up, and when you hear Adam Silver come to the podium here in just about a minute or so, we think it's going to be the name that he announces. This will be the Thunder's pick at number 10.
According to Woj, and we'll get some details on this as we go along, but according to Woj, it looks like it's the Mavericks wanting to trade down more so than Oklahoma City wanting to trade up, because the Mavericks are trading 10 and Davis Bertans to Oklahoma City for number 12. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot else surrounding that. Once again, we'll get the full details as they come out. But right now, it looks like Davis Bertans, a personal hero of Gideon Hamilton, will be playing for Oklahoma City alongside whoever we see picked right here, at number 10.
That was about 600 missed threes ago.
Yeah,
which,
well, you know.
coincidentally, all of those have been the last couple of years. He has a reputation as a good shooter, and maybe he's going to be, they're going to do a mock-up of him in the jersey, and that's going to be his OC career. It might be one of those things. But for Oklahoma City now, who is on the board that is out there? Now they came one pick away from Taylor Hendricks. Cam Whitmore, Kobe Buffkin has been linked to the Thunder. Derek Lively, if they're looking for a center and looking for some rim protection. Jalen Hood-Scafino, Jordan Dawkins, Cason Wallace from Kentucky is a point guard. You're hearing a lot of guards there in those 5 or 6 that are kind of in that neighborhood. Grady Dick is one of your favorites, guy that can bring some shooting. To Oklahoma City, Keontae George, who a lot of our listeners might be familiar with, shooting guard out of Baylor from a year ago. Looks like an NBA-ready type of player. Noah Clowney, power forward. Chris Murray is probably a reach at this position, but he's another guy that appears NBA-ready and ready to help right away. As the commissioner approaching the podium, this will go to the Thunder.
I have a trade to announce. As part of a deal to be finalized later, the Indiana Pacers
Your mics are still hot.
and Wizards, the draft rights to Bilal Coulibaly, the 7th pick, and the Wizards are trading to the Pacers the draft rights to Jarris Walker, the 8th pick. And with the 10th pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Cason Wallace from the University of Kentucky.
So it is Caden Wallace, a point guard from Kentucky, and the Thunder have had good luck with Wildcats in the past. He will be coming to Oklahoma City. This might be the Mavs trying to get Bertans off the books because he signed just an incredible contract in the 2020 offseason, which was good for about 17 million a year, and this could help free up some movement there. The Thunder, with some salary cap freedom, be able to absorb that, and so this could help the Mavericks move out. Maybe they had 2 or 3 different guys they were looking at here, thought that one of them was still available there at number 12. So as you said, Mavs want to move down, get some flexibility, and Oklahoma City, I'm sure, all too happy, move up number 10. What do you think about Cason Wallace, who was an all-SEC freshman a year ago?
He's a fantastic player. There's no question about it. I know it's another guard, so we'll see where he fits in the hierarchy of this Oklahoma City Thunder team. But, if you're watching on TV, Jay Billis always has his best players available.
Yeah.
He was sitting at the number 2 spot in that place. He would not be able to be picked by Oklahoma City if things go to fruition, which obviously we know they never do. Very, very versatile, and he does play really, really tight defense. So I think, once again, I think he's a really good player. I don't know how that fits into Oklahoma City as far as the depth chart goes. But if he ends up coming to Oklahoma City, which according to Shams he is, and Woj for that matter, he's really, really nice looking prospect for Oklahoma City.
All the Thunder have to give up is a trade exception and the fact that they're going to have to pay Bertans, this money. And that's, I mean, from this deal, it wasn't like Oklahoma City is like, we'll do anything to get up to 10 and take Cason Wallace. This really was just as is the case in a lot of these deals, like the Wizards. It's like, did what? And they got what back?
Right.
It's almost always about money in these deals where you look at and you're going, why did they do that?
Yeah. Dallas is going, okay, we want to get rid of Bertans' money. If you'll take his money, we'll let you bump up 2 picks and get whoever you want. Yeah. And so it's not a bad deal when you have room under the cap and you have room to spare. You can always grab a salary like that. It doesn't necessarily mean he's here for the long term. There's a lot of options that you can deal with him. But the bottom line is that, it looks like that's going to be the guy that comes to Oklahoma City, and we'll get to see Davis Bertans hopefully make some threes inside Paycom Center.
And the Mavs have been so cash-strapped for so long. This move actually gets them one move away from opening up a full mid-level exception where they could get a pretty decent player if they wanted to. We still don't know what Kyrie Irving's future there is, but we know that they need depth on that team, and particularly in the front court defensively. And so this is really, really helped them. And for Oklahoma City, we talked about this. This is the reason why I brought this up with you and Al earlier on, is I had the feeling they would take a guard, and they just because they drafted Cason Wallace does not mean, well, he's a point guard, so he starts at point guard next year.
Right.
And you just have to give up the ball to him and let him dribble around for a while, and then you guys go stand around and do whatever it is that you do. He might not get on the court much for OKC next year. Might be with the Blue, but if he is on the floor, it'll be probably in a reserve role, and he'll have the ability to set up guys that have shown that they're so effective moving and cutting off the ball. And so a great opportunity to learn. I understand the team looks guard heavy right now, but I really do feel like there was a spot at guard because some of the guys that they drafted later are not going to fill that role. So you might as well have some guy waiting in the wings if it's somebody that you feel really good about their ability.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. I
understand the other side too.
Yeah, and the other side is that team need aspect, and maybe the team need, according to Sam Presti, is another guard, is another ball handler. But I look at this team and I go, man, what an outside shooter would do to this team. And once again, you can discuss the starter versus bench player thing, but if you've got Shea out there with Giddy, and Giddy showed a lot of growth in his second year as far as not needing the ball as much, as far as using his 6'8" stature. I think that you those two guys with Chet and with J-Dub, if you put a guy that can flat knock down a shot, I think bodes for OKC.
The number 11 pick is in from Orlando, and this is Jet Howard from Michigan. This is a big jump. Jet was mocked somewhere in the 20s. This is Juwan Howard's son. So this is one of the biggest moves up of the night. That is the freedom that you get when you have two picks in the top 11. You can take a little bit of a bigger swing. Another guard for them.
Yep.
I don't know how crazy I am about that pick, but they obviously feel really confident in his abilities. Want to keep it here with the Thunder and tell you about the evaluations about Cason Wallace. His comp on Draft Room was Drew Holiday. This is one of the better ones that you're going to see outside of the lottery. An elite defender who is also a solid all-around offensive player. So defensively is an area where Oklahoma City can improve. I know the metrics showed that they played pretty well a year ago. I think there were a lot of extenuating circumstances for that. But if you're getting somebody who can help you on both sides of the ball and is considered by a lot of scouts and experts that really study this stuff as one of the best wing or guard defenders in the draft, to me, you have a hard time going wrong in that aspect, just because he doesn't fall through any kind of a floor. There's always a foundation where he will be of use to you.
Yep.
You would think.
Well, and he's not a liability. So many times you see these guys that are so that you have that he's a strong defender. Mm-hmm. The next sentence that usually comes out of their mouth is, "But his offense." Yeah. Well, this is not the case with this kid. He can shoot the basketball, he can pass the basketball, and he can play a little bit of defense. He's undersized at 6'2", but he's shown, like I said, all SEC freshman. I think he's got the ability to do some things on the NBA court. He's going to have to learn how to play against much bigger guys. He played against bigger guys in college, but he's going to play against much bigger guys in the NBA. But I think that he, once again, am I thrilled that they took a guard? Not necessarily, but I also think that if you're going to take one that's well coached and take one that has some versatility, and that's exactly what they got.
6'2.5", 195, 6'8" wingspan, and is a guy that is a crafty guard. He's not necessarily extremely quick offensively with his first step. But defensively is where this guy really earns his spot on the floor. Is a 44% shooter from the field in 32 minutes a game from Kentucky a year ago. Averaged 4 assists a game as a freshman. That's a pretty good number. Just under 12 points a game a season ago. So Cason Wallace from Kentucky is the pick for OKC as they move up from 12 to number 10. And we'll continue talking about that and tell you who the Mavs take at pick number 12 as we continue to roll through the NBA draft. Keep it locked right here. Of course, we're on The Sports Animal. You can check us out on our Sports Animal book page, YouTube page, and at Sports Animal on Twitter. We're having a great time here at Hopscotch on Hefner and May, and more of the NBA is coming your way next.
Thunder Youth Camps. Sign up today for our Thunder Coatings or youth basketball camps at okcthunder.com/summer camps. Total coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft with Gideon Hamilton and Bobby Thompson on 98.1 FM. WWLS, The Sports Animal.
Our coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft rolls on. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch, Hefner and May. Appreciate the great team out here for taking great care of us. Really, really fun to be a part of the NBA Draft Lottery Show and, of course, the NBA Draft tonight. Thank our team, Josh Lee, Scope, Preston Poole back in studio for the great job that they're doing. Check out our live stream on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. The number 12 pick is in. So Dallas and Oklahoma City swapped picks, and OKC has to take on Davis Bertans' contract. The Mavs end up with Derek Lively from Duke, who there were also some people who were kind of skittish about him in Thunder circles. Would have been another interior presence, but he will end up for Dallas, and that is something that they sorely wanted.
Dwight Powell, forward/restricted free agent. You got other guys that are on this team that are, a lot of their size is not going to be there. The one big guy still have under contract, JaVale McGee. How much do you trust that guy? The answer, not much. Christian Wood, also a free agent. So they need size. Not a huge fan of Lively this early in the draft, but you can't teach 7-1, and that's exactly what Dallas needed. That's what they went out and got is size. And he played at Duke, so there's something to be said for grabbing a Blue Devil.
A lot of Mavericks fans, just looking at some of the reaction online, were upset with the move, even though financially it makes a ton of sense for them. But they just wanted some wing or guard defense, since that's one of the things they struggle with the most. And thought that Cason Wallace would have filled that role. Let me ask you an interesting one. By the way, what do you think about the move that Oklahoma City made tonight? What do you think about the addition of Cason Wallace? We do have our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line open at 405-900-9957. So love to hear your take on that. 405-900-9957. How do you feel? I'm not setting anything up. I'm not being mischievous here because you got one guy who's 6'2" and one guy who's – how do you feel Lou Dort felt about this pick?
It's a great question because it's I think they're comparable. Obviously, Lou's bigger, but I think that I think it's a comparable pick. I don't know. I think that I thought for a long time that Lou Dort is a guy that can be a little bit more expendable than a lot of the other guys on the team. There are guys that are challenging for playoff spots, for championships, that need a defensive stopper. And if you do, I think that we're gonna get to a point where Lou against Dort, and we all love Lou, but we're gonna get to a point where he's a little bit more, could be a little bit more of a piece to get a bigger splash, because you want J-Dub to turn into that guy that can guard the other team's best wing, that can do some things defensively and offensively. Luke, obviously elite defensively. He's not elite offensively. Just doesn't shoot a high percentage from three, takes a lot of bad shots, takes too many shots, in my opinion, especially now adding Chet Holmgren to the mix. So we'll see if that becomes anything, or if Lou Dort's here long term. But the same type of player is Cason Wallace.
Here's your NBA draft order so far. Wemby 1, Brandon Miller 2 to Charlotte. Portland takes Scoot Henderson. Then Amin and Ausar Thompson back-to-back. Amin to the Rockets. His brother to the Pistons. Anthony Black, number 6 to Orlando. Bilal Coulibaly. We had 2 trades in the top 10. So this did end up having some movement here. The problem was they were just swaps. It wasn't somebody who entered into the fray. Toronto trading Pascal Siakam for, and number 3. These were just basically changing plays in line. There wasn't a lot of talent that was involved here. So Bilal Coulibaly ends up going to Washington, who moves up from 8 to 7. The Pacers move back from 7 to 8 and take Jarris Walker. Taylor Hendricks goes to the Utah Jazz. And then the second trade in the top 10 involved the Thunder moving up from 12 to 10, taking Cason Wallace from Kentucky. Derek Lively goes to the Mavs at 12. Jet Howard from Michigan draft in between them at 11 as we near the end of the NBA draft lottery. So there was some movement after all, maybe just not the fireworks that we anticipated with that.
No question. And now you come to another one of those teams. We've talked a lot about Portland. We've talked a lot about Lillard. What does the Toronto Raptors do? I mean, they're going to lose Fred VanVleet. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's not going to come back. There's a lot of rumors. I saw one earlier involving the Atlanta Hawks for Pascal Siakam. So what do they do? Is this a complete rebuild? They do have OG Anunoby, who's going to be, I think, really sought after if they do decide to blow this thing up. So what does Toronto do at number 13?
All right. And this is – so for Toronto, tonight is going to be the big night for them. That's coming up in about a week or so, around midnight, where they're going to make a decision in free agency in terms of what to do in the trade market. Let's listen and see what they do at 13.
With the 13th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Grady Dick from the University of Kansas.
So Grady goes number 13 to Toronto to give them some size and shooting. How about that suit, man?
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. It looks like Dorothy used her ruby slippers and made him a jacket. Is what that's like. That is an interesting look. I'm not gonna say it's a good look. I'm not gonna say it's a bad look. It's just a look for Grady Dick.
That's like somebody, either he or somebody in his family did that whole Storage Wars thing, and they found Liberace's storage unit.
It's fantastic. That's a great comparison. The funny part is it doesn't go all the way down. He has all this business up top and wearing black slacks. So it's not something that is a full length type of ensemble. It just goes past the waist, and then it's kind of boring from there on down.
Party on top, all business down below.
Down below. That's exactly right.
By the way, I mentioned something a little bit earlier. I mentioned something earlier about Dallas getting closer to the mid-level. Remember the level used to be like $5 or $9 million,
right.
And now it's at $17 million that you can use for your mid-level exception. I talked about them. They're getting a little bit closer to it. They are now there. This, according to Tim McMahon, who covers the NBA and covered the Mavericks for a number of different years. So they have they have the full mid-level exception, and they have the $17 million trade exception from OKC because nothing else changed hands. So they've got that now in order to make a trade. So they can add a useful rotational piece, and they've got that $17 million trade exception that they can use to bring on some salary that somebody else might want to get rid of. So Dallas is in a good position right now to make some move, a lot better position than they were about 24 hours ago to do things in free agency.
Yeah, it's amazing what Davis Bertans' contract will do to you, but now all of a sudden things not looking quite as bleak. They're not ready to do anything, Dallas. I mean, if they re-sign Kyrie, you still have two of the best guards in the NBA. What do you have around him? I don't know, what that really means. Like I said earlier, I'm not a big Lively guy as far as his, strong, prospects in the NBA. But, when you have those two guys, all you need is a couple of pieces, and you can be pretty decent. So we'll see if they get to that point. Yeah, the Bertans thing, Oklahoma City does the Dallas Mavericks a solid by taking on that contract to move up to get Case and Wallace.
I just don't know where Grady Dick fits in with Toronto, just because we don't know about what is still there for them. Gian Anunoby was rumored to be traded all year long. Yep. We knew VanVleet was gone. Siakam wants to stay, but they're worried about him still walking away for nothing at the end of next year. So I don't know if he's going to be the Will Smith of the team,
right?
And everybody else has cleared out in the meantime. So we'll see. But if he is a role player the way that we thought he might be for Oklahoma City, they were so inclined, then I think he could fit in really well. I just don't know what's going to be left around him.
Well, he's got a great opportunity to start because you just don't know who else is going to be there. If Siakam and OG Anunoby are still there, then obviously, maybe he does come off the bench. But he can really shoot. He's a lot more versatile than I think he gets credit for. I think people just look at him and they see Grady Dick and they think Kyle Korver, or they think Doug McDermott. And I'm not saying he shoots to that level, but I'm just saying a catch and shoot guy. He does more than that. He's capable defensively. Not a great defensive player, but he's capable defensively and he puts forth the effort. And so I think he's not going to really kill you on that end. And I think that he'll be a good player in the NBA given the right opportunity. I'm not sure thrusting him into a spot where he's going to get a bunch of shots is putting him in that right opportunity.
This comes from the Go Figure news, Shams Charania from The Athletic. The Mavericks are active in the trade marketplace to use their new $17 million trade option to acquire a player for a current or future pick.
Nice. Okay, we'll see what Dallas is. So, Mark Cuban down there being active, which is what he needs to be, because that Dallas Maverick team was just a disaster from the time they got rid of Dorian Finney-Smith and the guy they sent to Brooklyn. That was a horrible trade, in my opinion. And I'm not a big Kyrie guy. You can't deny the talent, but the fit with Luka Doncic doesn't make any sense. And from that point on, they did not win very many basketball games. We'll see what happens with them now as they're trying to build, and as they're hopefully trying to bring Kyrie Irving back into the fold.
So this is going to be the final pick of the NBA lottery. The New Orleans Pelicans have this pick by virtue of their loss to Oklahoma City in that play-in game and not getting in, despite having one of the top records there. Atlanta and then Utah with yet another pick is after that. What do you think of the Pelicans right now? They're in a state of flux, aren't they?
They are in a state of flux. You're a bigger Zion guy than I am.
Yeah.
But and I like Zion. It's not like I can't stand the guy. It really feels like he's becoming a little bit of a problem down there. Mm-hmm. It feels like he's a malcontent. It feels like he's not happy with something, however New Orleans has managed him or whatever. I don't know how long he's going to stay there. If we could ever see those guys on the court together, I mean, the Thunder were the masters watching one guy the entire season. I think we saw two of them once.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just one guy. If they could get CJ McCollum, Allen Williams, and Brandon Ingram on the court at the same time for an extended period of time, I'd love to see what they're capable of.
Yeah.
I just don't know how feasible that is. And now with the apparent issues that Zion's having with management, or that management's having with Zion, and now he's been put on the block. How does that affect his psyche? Or maybe not put on the block, but he's been rumored for different things. What does that do to his psyche? How is it damaged? Is that relationship damaged even more? I think there's a lot of question marks down in New Orleans, which is sad because I really like the guys they have.
What do they need? That's where I thought Chris Paul might. I mean, some kind of more traditional point guard. Maybe?
I think so.
We'll see what the commissioner has to say. Final pick of the lottery.
Another trade to announce.
This will be the old Dallas-Oklahoma City trade.
As part of a deal to be finalized later, the Dallas Mavericks are traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder the draft rights to Cason Wallace, the 10th pick, and the Thunder are trading to the Mavericks the right to Derek Lively II, the 12th pick. With the 4th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Jordan Hawkins from the University of Connecticut.
It's kind of an interesting one. He is a guard, but he's not a ball-handling guard. He is his comp was Anthony Simons. He's just kind of one better shooters in the draft. To me, that feels redundant with CJ a little bit. So this one I don't get unless he really jumps off the page as a three-point shooter.
The only thing I will say to that is anybody can dribble the ball up the court. Now we'll see if Brandon Ingram really does step in and be the playmaker of the team, where CJ's on one side, you got this kid on the other, because this kid can shoot. So if he spreads the court, maybe it opens things up for a Zion or for a Brandon Ingram.
The lottery is complete. We want you to sound off on what happened with Oklahoma City. Our trade proceed and our text line is open, 405-900-9957. What did you think about what the Thunder did moving up from 12-10, and taking Cason Wallace from Kentucky, the point guard. We will read some of those texts when we return, and we'll have more picks on the way. Don't forget, Morning Animals Curtis Fitzpatrick will react to what has happened so far in the NBA draft from the Thunder perspective and elsewhere when we come back to our coverage, the NBA draft here from Hopscotch, Hefner and May on the Sports Animal. Hopscotch, Hefner, and Gideon Hamilton. Bobby Thompson here with you. Kitchen's open until midnight tonight. They are open until 2 o'clock if you want to come by and sample some of their wide selection of craft and local beer. They've got great cocktails, whiskey out here as well, and some fantastic food. So if you've been stuck at work, or maybe you got an event, you will come out here and hang out with us for the NBA draft, you can do so here at Hopscotch. Check us out on our Sports Animal Twitter feed, also on the Sports Animal YouTube page and our Sports Animal Facebook as well, as we're streaming live here from Hopscotch. And I think due to the confusion of the trade, we didn't really have that eruption or that disappointment, because a lot of people were trying to figure out what was going on with Case and Wallace, but we now have some reaction trickling in now that people have had an opportunity to process. And again, you can sound off on our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line. We're on until 10, so we're going to read all of these that we get that are airable.
Yeah. First one, just ask the simple question, and I think it's a valid question. How does this pick help the Thunder's shooting? And the answer to that is I don't think it really does. I mean, and not that Case and Wallace can't shoot the basketball. He can. He's an okay shooter. But, I think that when you're throwing out guys like Giddey, who did so many things at 6'8", around the rim using his size. Yep. Shea can score from anywhere. The second he walks in the building, he's in range. So you just know what he's going to give you. Chet is 9 feet tall, so have a general idea of what, even though we haven't seen him in 2 years, you kind of know what you're going to see with him. And obviously offensively, he can do some things. And J-Dub, we know, runner-up for Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. Those are the 4 guaranteed, in my opinion, starters. Then then after that, you kind of look around and go, okay, who could be a knockdown guy when Shea's being aggressive, when Chet's going to the rim, when J-Dub's doing his thing? You always have to have somebody. Isaiah Joe is one of the guys that could do that did that off the bench for Oklahoma City. But who's another guy that can just knock down shots? Yeah. And I just don't think Case and Wall that guy. And I'm not saying that's what they were looking for. They found a guy they liked, they took him, and he might be a great player. But just once again, me, the rebuild is over to me. And once again, I'm not Sam Presti. He looks for the future. I'm not looking at the future anymore. This team finished 10th a year ago. They want to climb. They want to try to get into the upper play-in, if not to that safe 6 spot. Yeah. And I don't know how much this draft pick helps them do that short term.
The first pick outside of the lottery, number 15 to Kobe Buffkin, also from Michigan. So the second Wolverine taken within 5 picks goes to at number 15, and Kobe had the sport coat, no shirt look. What'd you think about that one?
Not a good look. Looks better on him than it would on me.
Yeah.
So that's fair.
Probably true.
But no, the Kobe Buffkin kid, I watched highlights of him. I looked at his numbers.
A lot of people had him going to the Thunder.
They did. That's exactly right. One of the reasons why I watched so much of him, and I think he's a good player. It just scares me when you talk about a guy having basically one good year, and then moving him all the way up into the lottery. That to me is terrifying, because what's the truth? Is the truth last year and how he's grown into his game, or is the truth the previous 17 years when it wasn't considered a top? You know what I'm saying? It's just one good year. It worries me a little bit, and so I am glad that Oklahoma City did not end up with Buffkin, despite the fact that I love his first name.
Jonathan Gibney, who is a guy that I trust. He's a guy that will put out negativity when it is warranted, and that stuff has paid off. It's easy for all these guys to praise these guys and then have that come to fruition or not, but he has been kind of in line with some guys in terms of some of the assessments that he's made negatively early on and how that has ended up happening. His read on Cason Wallace, ideal size and length for a guard in terms of his wingspan and frame that should fill out nicely in time. Calling card revolves around toughness and defensive versatility. Was just the attack for Kentucky generated a lot of turnovers defensively, so that's a good thing that Oklahoma City can use their advantage. Showed the ability to guard bigger and smaller players. His offensive aggressiveness was a mixed bag at times, where we heard that before, but showed enough potential as a perimeter shooter, 35% from three-point range, which that's all Al is worried about here with this pick, and is a good enough passer where he's should improve as a shot creator and as a finisher. So kind of a combo guard, but overall was complimentary of Cason Wallace, as most people were, but it's just all about where you think guys fit in a little bit more. Bobby, what do some of our listeners think about the move from OKC?
I'm going to go back to Twitter for a second. We had a listener, a couple of listeners were discussing ESPN's coverage, and our man Brent Brown said, forget the ESPN coverage, WWLS Synced Up is the best option, to which I sent him a thank you. He said, no, thank you, best damn radio station around. So you got to love that from our listeners. Appreciate that a ton from Brent. But yeah, a lot of other guys sending out some just some questions. Let's see if I can find another one. He said that this draft is not exactly provoking for me, but we got another guard. I will trust Presti. And I think that's kind of what you got to do. I mean, you got to figure out he's got the plan. Once again, I've said this a couple of times. He looks long-term. And 3 years ago, it was all about me some long-term because the short-term didn't look real good. Now, he continues to look long-term while the rest of us have jumped ship and have said, okay, what can we do now? And that's the disconnect when you watch drafts like this, because we want guys that are going to be effective day. And Cason Wallace might be.
Yeah.
But we don't know that for a fact. And also position-wise, it just doesn't make any sense. But time will tell, when the draft was.
Utah wants to move away from Colin Sexton, which I always thought was going to happen during the year a year ago, but he got hurt, couldn't. Right. And so I think they've had a really nice run throughout their 2 picks, one inside the lottery, one on the outside. They go with Taylor Hendricks from UCF with the number 9 overall pick. And now they get Keontae George from Baylor with the number 16 overall pick. So filling a couple of different needs for that team.
No question. No doubt about it. I like Keontae George. I didn't like him at 12, but now we're getting into the area where I did like him. He can score in a lot of ways. He can really shoot from deep. I think he's a guy that will help stretch the floor. He's a good guard player for that Utah Jazz team. We talked about all the different holes they have in that starting lineup, and and on their team in general, with the number with your 3 spot and your 5 spot pretty much solidified. What you do after that, and I think he's one of those guys that can fit in really good, very, very good scorer. And I think he'll fit in well with Utah.
Trade Pro Seatner text line open 459-100-9957. We're about to hear from Curtis Fitzpatrick here in just a few minutes. After that, we are going to hear from Cason Wallace, his interview that happened with ESPN a little earlier. So you want to stay tuned for that. The first time that you're going to hear from the newest member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, along with Davis Bertans. Bertans has the $17 million a year contract. This is the first time I saw this graphic where $22 million of that is guaranteed for him. And I don't know. I guess we're going to find out later with Sam Presti whether he's going to be here long-term or not. But that's really not their ultimate priority right now. That was more of why that move was made in the first place from Dallas' standpoint. What else do we have in terms of reaction to the pick here?
Well, here's the funny part about and I know where they're coming from. I think we can answer one question and pretty much knock out half of the text messages.
Yeah.
Why did Oklahoma City select another guard? You've talked about that, and I think but I think it's a fair question. I think that on the surface, you look at this roster and you look at the breakdown of players at each position. it's just, once again, it's short-term thinking versus long thinking. That's the player they want, and they went up and got him.
Last year, okay, for this team, how many guards really, after Josh's just horrible start early in the year, how many guards did this team really have? And I think the answer was probably one. And Jalen Williams was an initiator at times. Gideon was just an off-the-ball cutter. I mean, he did have the ball. He inbounded. He was a decision maker at some points, depending on who was on him defensively. But I think they really had one guard. The Trey Man thing's not going to work, and they really don't have anybody else. Do they?
Joe, which once again,
and he is an off-the-ball player, and that so to me, is this kid going to have the ball in his hands a lot? No. Right. But in terms of guards and guys that can use their quickness to stay in front of guards, more importantly, I think he needed that.
Yeah, that's
I can argue for other players, but I think that probably was a need that they looked at.
And that's fair. I think that, when you say, to me, this whole thing revolves around define guard. What is a guard? Is a guard a small guy? Is a guard a guy that handles the ball? Is a guard a guy that shoots? What is your definition of guard? By definition, Josh Giddey is listed as a point guard. He didn't dribble the ball up the court. He's moving around under the basket using his 6'8". Yeah. He's as big a wing as he is a guard, if not bigger. Then J-Dub's not a guard. He's a small forward in this league, maybe even a power forward in this league, depending on what lineup you throw out there. And so Shea obviously is a guard. I think Dort is a guard. I don't know what what the long term is for him. You talked about Trey Man already. Isaiah Joe's not going to be really a whole lot other than a really, really good 3-point shooter. So your argument's well made. I think that's really probably to some level what the Thunder are thinking in taking a guard there at number 10.
I'm just telling you probably what they're thinking versus in. And I know that you can make an argument for a couple of different guys that might have still been on the board at that time, but there probably weren't really that many. And it might have been a tough decision, or maybe they thought they could have had Mason Wallace number 6 on their board, or they could have had 2 or 3 guys. They're like, probably can't go wrong with either of them. You want to move up to 10? Okay, we like Wallace the best out of these 3. Okay, we just don't know what it was like in there.
Yep, no question. And then the other half of the questions revolve around Davis Bertans, and it's too big of unknown right now. Yeah. He may never see the court as a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They may pay him, they may stretch him, they may do all kinds. There are all kinds of options for Davis Bertans, depending on whether they want him on the court or whether they want to get rid of it.
Yeah,
if they want him on the court and if they decide to give him a shot. When he
put on the Magic Thunder uniform that these guys put on, over under 5.5, how many 16-point leads he erases by himself next year?
Over, no question about it. No doubt about it. But once again, is he the Davis Bertans from a few years ago that just made everything he threw at the basket, or is he the Davis Bertans from the last couple of years who missed the rim more than he made their shots? We've seen a lot of players come in here, like you said, put that Thunder blue on, and all of a sudden their career has changed. Can he have the resurgence, so to speak, of what Isaiah Joe did a year ago? It'd be fantastic for the Thunder if he could.
We're going to continue to research that, and obviously we'll hear a little bit later on from Sam Presti what he has to say about the moves that Oklahoma City made tonight. But coming up next, though, we're going to get Curtis Fitzpatrick's opinion. Of course, Curtis, KOKH 25 and the Morning Animals, and he'll offer his take on what has happened. Yeah, he's still awake.
Okay.
He got up for this.
Man, that's impressive.
He was
workaholic,
asleep for a couple hours. And he's going to do this and then go back to bed for a little while. So we're going to get his thoughts on what has happened around Oklahoma City. Of course, this move that the Thunder have made as well. We're having a great time here at Hopscotch, Hefner, and May. Yeah, they're open until 2 a.m. tonight. The bar is anyway. Kitchen's open all the way until midnight, so still an opportunity for you to come out and get some great foods. The Lake Hood Scafino, number 17, So he will be headed to Los Angeles, the kid out of Indiana. Curtis Fitzpatrick coming up, and we hear from Cason Wallace in this hour as well. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson, you're listening to the Sports Animals coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft.
Is energy, more fun,
somebody at
ladies,
Cam
more of you to
Whitmore
go around to
mocked
those who
in the
need you.
top 5.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, a lot of these guys had him like in the top 5 or 6. He's still there.
Some
Aaron
are
Rodgers?
some are saying he's sinking like a submarine.
The moment of this draft for the Oklahoma City Thunder is they move up to 10. Dallas move back to 12. And the Thunder end up with Cason Wallace, the point guard out of Kentucky. As we're speaking, Jaime Jaquez drafted by the Miami Heat at number 18. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch. Hefner and May having a great time out here. And right now, joining us, you know him, of course, from the Morning Animals, Curtis Fitzpatrick. And Curtis, we can do a big lead up into this, but basically the question is going to boil down to think about the move that the Thunder made today and the player that they're going to be getting.
Not surprising they ended up with Cason Wallace. How they did it was a surprise, and I don't mind how they did it because they pick up a contract, and it could be something they could trade later, or it could be a guy, Bertans, throw him out there, shoot, make some buckets, up his trade value, trade him later for even more value. So I don't know. I talked a lot over the last couple of weeks. We had like a running pool guys you think they might draft if they stayed at number 12. And every time I did a group of 5, Cason Wallace was on that list. I wasn't buying the I got too many guards thing. I think they're just going to take the guy they liked. And so not surprised they ended up with Cason Wallace. Surprised they had him at number 10.
So Curtis, all the rumors around about the Koulibaly kid or some of those other guys that have been in a lot of those mock drafts. What were your thoughts of those, and are you more relieved that Wallace became the pick?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I wasn't high on Koulibaly, so when he got picked and moved to Washington, I was fine with it. Yep. I was like, okay, I didn't want to have to buy into his development, but I've liked Wallace for a long time. I really do. Now, is there a little redundancy? Yes. I think he's built just like Lou Dort, guys, which to me says, and it's a different mind guard, so you got that. I don't know. I think this could be something going on with Lou Dort. Maybe not now, maybe not in the season, but maybe this is setting up for you've got Bertans' contract, you've got Dort's contract. Maybe next year, guys, is the time they strike after the season. Maybe you go into a year from now on draft night and you package those two salaries and you have a bunch of picks. Maybe that's when you go big game hunting, Gideon. I know you've talked about, you don't know when that window is going to be, but at some point you got to think they're going to pull the trigger, and you got to have salaries to be able to match their salaries. So that's kind of my first hunch. Yeah. Maybe something could be going on there.
$37 million, and we have to be somebody who another team maybe might not be confident would re-sign, and maybe Oklahoma City would try to convince them, maybe the last deal, something like that. There has to be something in place that would be fortuitous for Oklahoma City in that situation to give up those contracts, but that's a lot of ammo there that a lot of teams typically don't have. So you feel right now that when Sam Presti addresses the media here in about 5 hours that that you guys might carry that live tomorrow or the end of it, that Bertans, this is not going to be him photoshopped in a Thunder uniform, and that's the extent of his Thunder career. Like a lot of these guys, you think that this is be a spot for him to, kind of be a reclamation project, get those shooting numbers up, and then at least get track enough to where he has a little bit of value to somebody else who needs some shooting. Is that correct?
Yeah, don't buy, just rent, the old philosophy, right? And he could be great next year, but he's not a long-term answer for the Thunder.
Right.
And I saying it's going to happen, before the season starts. I could see them playing him and him getting some minutes. And I don't know where, but somehow he gets minutes. Maybe he's healthy enough during the season that maybe at the trade deadline something big happens. I gotta think though, guys, that they took on this contract because they have money, and it to me it feels like they were going to case balls at 12, right?
Right.
So the Mavericks approach him with this deal. The Thunder have the space.
Yep.
They can get the guy they want at 10. They don't have any draft picks, and they just take on a salary, and they have a history of reclamation projects. So, yeah, that would be my gut feeling. He's not going to be here long-term. I don't know what long-term means, but I don't know. I mean, Gideon, Bobby, am I kind of sniffing around what you guys think this Lou Dort thing? Because if you look at Mason Wallace play, he kind of just is almost like another Lou Dort.
Yep. No, as soon as we heard about it, that was one of the first things that I asked Bobby is, what do you think Lou Dort thinks about this draft pick? Which, I mean, he might come here and not be ready for the NBA. So it just won't pan out. We'll see. But there are enough similarities there where if you've got a guy who's doing what another player does, or filling a kind of role that another player does, and that's a big leap. And I'm not making that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing that. One of the best wing defenders in the NBA, according to the players that have to play against him and the coaches that have to coach against him, is not there. But if you've got somebody that is offering something similar to you for $4 million a year for 4 years instead of $20 million, you can kind of see where this thing ends up. If he's not, though, and there's any number of chances that's going to be true, then you stick with a proven commodity there. But no, I completely understand where you're going with that. Just not ready to make that leap at this point. You can also check us out here, Curtis, on our Sports Animal Twitter page, Facebook page, and YouTube. And if they, when they have on the phone, they've got the headshot there in the corner, and hopefully they have that shot of Curtis a couple of years ago where he had the Kobe Buffkin thing rocking, where it was sport coat with nothing underneath on that one newscast.
It's a good look, Curtis.
On Fox 25.
I'm sorry you got me mistaken for the Gritty Dick outfit. That's
more your
that
style.
Was the suit I was wearing that night.
I think this thing worked out pretty well for Dallas too, to get off that deal. They've got a mid-level now, and they've got that $17 million trade exception. So in terms of who came out better in this, in terms of what Dallas wants to do immediately, I think this worked out for both teams, right?
That's the idea, right? Isn't that what you want? I thought going into the day, I was trying to think, or is there somebody that I am just going to put my foot down and say, do not draft this guy? In fact, Gideon, I think it was a year ago, I was on with now. I think it was right after, it might have been right after they got Chet, or right before, I'm not sure. We were talking about the 12th pick. Remember, you asked a question, and I don't know, you might have been asking this all night. Who do you not want? Like, we're just throwing out topics, and I think I put my foot down and said, I do not want them to draft Jeremy Johan, who turns out is a good player. I think that's a really good pick for the Spurs. I remember thinking, I don't want this guy. I wasn't saying draft Jalen Williams. Glad they did, because I love the guy. But there wasn't anybody like that in this part of the draft at number 12 this year, pool players we thought could be drafted, and I was just like, I absolutely do not want that guy. So when I kept bringing up Casey Wallace as one of the 5 guys that I would say they could and should draft in that pool, he kept coming up. So I'm not angry. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk pick. I like the player. I like Casey Wallace a lot. I like his ability. I like what he's all about. Tough-minded kid. I mean, he's a competitor, typical Sam Presti type of guy. We'll just see how they manage the roster with him.
I got a 2-part question for you, Curtis. Just more draft stuff as far as what you think of Brandon Miller going 2 and his fit with LaMelo Ball in Charlotte, and then what's going through the mind right now of Baby in Portland?
Golly, I have been hearing every time for the last year and a half we've been reading about this draft, always Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. It was Wembanyama 1 and Scoot Henderson number 2. In fact, there are a lot of people that said in other drafts, Scoot Henderson's going number 1. So when it got down to it and they actually pulled the trigger, no pun intended, promise you, on Brandon Miller, I wasn't buying the smoke about Brandon Miller, and sure enough, they took him. I thought you take the best player available. To me, Scoot Henderson was the best player available, and I don't know. I don't like it. Now I love it for Portland. I mean, guys, it is sitting right there on a platter for Portland to make the Damian Lillard trade and get maximum value right now with what you could have as your backcourt of the future if you really like Shaedon Sharpe and you love Scoot Henderson like I do. I think it's time to pounce, and it's time to move Damian Lillard.
Curtis Fitzpatrick is joining us. Brandon Podziemski from Santa Clara goes to Golden State, and looking at it here, it looks like the Rockets are finally going to draft Cam Whitmore, who was in a lot of top 5 in mock drafts. Apparently his interview and workout processes have gone horribly. At least that's what we've heard in the last few days. So he is dropped all the way down to number 20, and the Rockets with 2 picks in the top 20 are going to end up with Cam Whitmore, and then, of course, took Amen Thompson at number 4. So I think they would feel pretty good about that, even though you're still getting some wing presence, which there's going to be a glut of that they're going to have to sort through. I like what the Jazz have done, Curtis, so far in this draft. That thing is wide open, so there's all different kinds of positions to fill in that rebuild. And Taylor Hendricks out of UCF, kind of in that Jared Vanderbilt role where he started a season ago, and then Keontae George from Baylor. We know they're trying to get off of that Colin Sexton deal, and so he should have some time to himself as well. What do you think? Who have been some of the winners so far in your mind here in the early stages of the draft?
Love the Taylor Hendricks pick. Everybody was kind of infatuated with him, and I talked about this with Spinozzi, and I said, man, unless they really give up, they're getting that guy. I mean, this is not going to happen. He's going to go high. So, yeah, I'm with you. I've kind of been intrigued by Keontae George. I wasn't sold on the Thunder taking him, but I thought he could have gone right after that. We mentioned the Mavericks and the Thunder deal. I like what the Mavericks did. It's weird. I don't like Derek Lively for the Mavericks, but not for the Thunder. And heck, they could still trade Derek Lively. The Mavericks could. A little intrigued by Orlando, not in a good way, more of in a inquisitive way.
Yeah.
Not sure about the Jet Howard.
I really like the first one. Didn't understand the second one.
Yeah, and yeah, I would agree with that. Anthony Black, they need a guard they can trust. I think he's kind of like a Josh Giddey type guy. Not a great shooter, but creative passer. A little better defensive player coming into the league than Josh Giddey was, but very high basketball IQ. So I'm with you, Gideon. I think that's a good way to put it. Like I was really intrigued and excited about their first pick. Didn't like their second pick.
So what about these deals, especially the one that happened today? I know you didn't have an opportunity to react to this, but Chris Paul traded from Washington after this deal that was just struck recently, and he will be rerouted to San Francisco to play for the Golden State Warriors. And Jordan Poole, I cannot believe Golden State was able to trade him, and it only came about because of the mode that the Wizards are in right now and trying to get to the salary floor after they get rid of everybody else on the team. But this was, I think, maybe beneficial in a couple of ways for the Warriors. You can look at this and say, what is Chris Paul's role on the team? But he's a guy that has a lot of experience, a guy that can set up and take offensive burden off of some of the other guys. Defensively, I think at this stage in his career, that's going to be an issue. But this is the Warriors are in a lot better shape now than they were, like 8 hours ago or whenever this deal was made, just because Jordan Poole was not going to work. Curtis.
I totally agree with the Poole part of it. I don't want him anywhere near my team, especially with that contract.
Yeah,
mainly.
right.
And good for the Wizards finally getting a first-round pick. Guys, they traded Porzingis and Beal and didn't land one first-round pick.
Yeah.
Finally got one. They took on the contract. They're taking everybody's contracts. They don't care about who the player is, what the contract is. So good for them. They got a pick. And yes, good for the Warriors getting off the contract. I like Chris Paul. I am very curious to know how it works, because the Warriors are all about movement and movement and movement. And Chris Paul is more of a methodical pick and roll point guard. Now, if there's anybody who can adapt, I think it's, well, the Warriors can adapt to him and he can adapt to them. He's a veteran, great locker room guy, all that stuff. So from that standpoint, yeah, the Warriors are very curious to see how that works. And what is he? He's not coming off the bench, is he? I mean, who? Who are they?
It depends on
bumping from the starting lineup.
Well, it depends on who they. I think they're going to end up if they bring Drawn back. You can't. And they probably aren't. But even if you, obviously Chris Paul's not going to play power forward, so that really doesn't necessarily matter. But your top three, your Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins. Chris Paul's not better than any of those guys. So I don't see how he starts in that line.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing.
Never come off the bench, but
if he's willing to do it, that'd be fantastic. Have him come off your bench.
Well, hopefully this has eased some Thunder fans' minds here, as Curtis Fitzpatrick. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Curtis. I'm paraphrasing here, but you're a big fan of what happened for the Oklahoma City Thunder on this night.
I am a fan. How about that?
That'll work.
I'll modify what you said, and I'll say I'm a fan of it. I'm not a big fan, but I'm a fan of it. I'm not anti the move. How about that?
All right.
There we go. Good. Yeah, that's good.
That'll work. Curtis, appreciate taking time this evening. We will see you tomorrow on the Morning Animals.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Curtis Fitzpatrick there. All right. Coming up next, we are going to hear from the man himself, the player the Thunder took with the number 10 overall pick in this year's NBA draft, the point guard out of Kentucky, Cason Wallace. His interview with ESPN is coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch, Hefner and May. It's our draft party for the 2023 NBA draft here on Sports Animal. to our coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. Thanks so much for everybody hanging out with us tonight out here at Hopscotch, listening on the Sports Animal. Of course, we've got all our streams open as well. Sports Animal Twitter at Sports Animal, of course, Sports Animal Facebook page, YouTube page. Hope you've had fun with us tonight. Still got a little ways to go, including our Case and Wallace interview with ESPN that we're going to play for you in just a minute. But Paul, kind of a special treat for us, I guess. Tournament not going on right now, so let's go ahead and take you to City, Las Vegas, Nevada, where Jim Traber is here to offer his thoughts on Oklahoma City's draft pick number 10 tonight. Jim, what did you think about the choice of point guard Cason Wallace?
Yeah! Oh my gosh! Oh.
Okay, so not a fan.
That's an unfortunate ending. They're sitting at the poker table screaming about the pick of Cason Wallace. Probably cost him a couple of blinds.
Not everybody. I think there were some people that had a similar reaction. Probably not as wet of a reaction.
Right. Yeah. That's Jim said we'd hear him scream from Vegas. So that's we wanted to make sure we were good. We were good on that.
Jim, thank you, by the way, for calling in. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Yes.
Now let's hear some actual sound. This is from the Thunder's pick at number 10 overall. Cason Wallace, the point guard of Kentucky. This is in the aftermath of him being selected, shaking Adam Silver's hand, and his interview with ESPN. Let's listen in.
Cason, congratulations. I think we got to open this jacket, though. Yeah. Hold the mic so we can hear.
I think we landed that perfectly, guys.
I got my brother, me and my brother, mom, dad, me. HBT, that's the neighborhood that I grew up in Dallas, Hamilton Park, Texas. And it just... a lot going on, a lot of issues right now.
What's the biggest one? A dream has been realized. What's the biggest emotion you're feeling?
I'm just grateful that I'm here. Thankful. I thank God that I'm in this position here today, and there's still more to be done.
Keaton, you guys have a 5-year age gap.
Yeah, we do.
So you've watched your brother grind. I'm sure you guys have epic battles in the driveway or in the park. What do you think of his basketball team when you culminate tonight?
Man, he's came a long way, and just to be there from the beginning, we had long nights. So about late 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, neighbors complaining about us dribbling the ball. We going hard at each other late at night. So, to see his progress from elementary to middle school to high school to college and now to the pros, it's great, and I just proud of him. I can't even stop smiling right now.
Now, you have on a Mavs hat, but the pick is going to OKC. But you are now on a long list of Kentucky men that have gone on to have NBA careers as Coach Cal is sitting in the arena tonight. Is that pressure, expectation, joint legacy, and how has Kentucky prepared you?
It's definitely expectation from pressure. It just builds on, in my opinion. So, Kentucky guards, Kentucky players in general, they get to the league, they stick for a while, and Kentucky, they set me up very nicely. Let me play point, let me play wing. I got to display many different talents.
I got about 15 seconds.
Current Wildcat in the league you're looking forward to playing against most?
Probably Jamal, since he's the champ right now. He's the champ.
Well, Keaton, Cason, congratulations.
Thank you.
Talking about Jamal Murray,
sure,
who went to Kentucky as well. So that a good one there. Afterwards, they also have a media availability where reporters are able to ask these guys questions. And somebody asked him, the one that's circulating around right now, how do you feel about going to Oklahoma City? Basically insinuating the lack of nightlife and that type of deal, which that used to be, stereotype, 9 and 10.
Sure.
And all these guys had to answer those questions. They really don't answer many of those anymore. And he said, I definitely will be fine in Oklahoma. There's not much to do, but it lets you stay focused. That's the main goal.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's probably not the best way to endear yourself to the Thunder fans, but go out there and make some defensive stops and get a couple of buckets. They'll look right past that line.
Well, a lot of people who live in Oklahoma probably agree with him also.
That may be true too. But I just, the first thing to say, you get drafted by a team, you're about to make millions of dollars, there's nothing to do there. Probably not the best look, but hey, like I said, get out there and play some ball, you'll be all right.
Yeah, shut some guys down. Defensively, that's going to be his calling card this year. But I do think he's going to get a lot of opportunities, especially with Oklahoma City's bench. And look, I mean, this guy's a top 10 pick. I don't know how much we'll see him across the street, but I would think that wouldn't be a bad idea. And we'll see him in preseason and kind of how he fits in and what kind of time that he needs. But with this team, the draft pick this year is Chet, and
that's right.
That's going to be the focal point of any new players that are brought in for Oklahoma City. And then Cason Wallace is just going to try to find his niche where Chet Holmgren is really going to take hold of a big part of Oklahoma City's offense and defense.
People are gonna forget that Cason's a rookie because of the Chet Holmgren watch, and and maybe because he's not going to play a ton. We'll see.
Yeah.
But the rookie watch is on Chet Holmgren, and it's an important rookie watch. We've got plenty of time over the next couple of months before Thunder season starts again to talk about what's on the 7'2", 7'3" shoulders of Chet Holmgren. But this rebuild is where it's at, and if they want to take another step, he's got to deliver. And so that's going to be the watch coming up for the Oklahoma City Thunder coming up in 23-24 is how good can Chet Holmgren be in the NBA?
Yeah, that suit, 32 extra long.
Yeah. Yes, no question about that.
I still haven't seen any of the photos with like the shadowing, of him working out, saying look how much bulk he's put on.
No, haven't seen that. It's coming though.
Yeah,
it's coming.
A couple of weeks away.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's coming.
So we've had some picks in the meantime here. Hearing from Cason Wallace, told you Cam Whitmore finally went number 20. Man, shame when you see these kids fall the way that they do sometimes. Noah Clowney goes to Brooklyn, and the Nets, because of a trade, had back-to-back picks. So they take Noah Clowney out of Alabama, the power forward, and then Derek Whitehead from Duke, a shooting guard. Portland is on the clock at 23. Then the Sacramento Kings at 24, and Chris Murray, Keegan's brother, is thought to be sort of in this neighborhood. He's one of Bobby and I our favorite players in this draft, and so we're talking about where do you want to see him go out of these teams. I think he would help Portland. Kind of strange seeing him go to Sacramento, and then Utah has yet another first-round pick at number 28. That would cap off what we think anyway right now would be a really great night for them. 3 first-round draft picks, all of whom look like they have some kind of quality that they can add to that team right away. So we'll see. But there's some really good players that are still on the board, and I think, like looking at this year's NBA draft, this one might be one of those where you scroll for a while and then you see, oh, he turned out to be really good. He turned out to be really good, and maybe 6 through 11 or something like that. I don't know. You kind of pick your range here, or 12 through 18. Where's that guy? That guy's already out of the league, that type of deal. But then as you scroll forward, you start to see some guys that can add some value to teams.
Yeah, this is not a draft like we had the other, a couple of years ago where you had that the can't miss top 5.
Yeah, right.
To me, this was, with all due respect to Brandon Miller, this was a Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson draft. And then everybody else was kind of on that next tier and then down. And that's just, once again, that's pre-draft chatter.
Yeah.
But it's a two-man thing. We expect those two guys to be spectacular. 5 years from now, what are we going to think of Brandon Miller? Are we going to think, man, Charlotte nailed that one? Or are they going to be licking their wounds because they still stink?
Right.
Because they wasted the second pick in the draft. One of the Thompson boys is going to be that guy.
Right.
And that's the thing is there's a lot of really good players in this draft. It's not top heavy at all, but this could be a draft where you look at it and you go, man, 5 of the top 20 are outstanding.
Right,
and so that's what's going to be fun. And that's what makes this draft interesting and what makes this draft hard to prepare for because I have no idea I had no idea short of those top three where really anybody was going to go.
Or they talked to Cason Wallace's brother, who's 5 years younger. If he's getting drafted 5 years from now, he might say, Brandon Miller's the GOAT. I mean, that could happen, right?
We almost made it. Paul George.
I didn't know when he was here. We were watching the greatest basketball player of all time.
I think that there is one aspect of Paul George that is absolutely the greatest of all time. He does have one aspect that is GOAT worthy, and that is his immense talent to make excuses.
Our favorite of all time, of course, when his shooting turned cold, it was because the weather was unseasonably cool.
Somehow inside the arena, the weather outside was hurting his jump shot. That's amazing. I've never heard. You have to be exceptionally talented to recognize that in an arena that's 75 degrees.
All right, we'll come back. We will wrap things up. We've still got some picks rolling in and get some final thoughts. You want to sound off on our Trade Pros Heat and Air text line, 405-900-9957. Love to hear from you what you thought about draft night, maybe even outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who's some of the picks that you think are going to make it? And there goes Chris Murray, number 23 to the Portland Trailblazers. I think that is an excellent pick. We'll see how much he's able to help those guys next year, lefty as opposed to his brother. But again, I think a really solid NBA-ready guy. I think that's a really good value pick at number 23. We'll come back, get some more picks, get some more reaction. Gideon Hamilton, Bobby Thompson here at Hopscotch, Hefner, and May on the Sports Animal.
The Morning Animal.
Gary, you mentioned yesterday about the guys who left.
on The Sports Animal, our live coverage of the 2023 NBA Draft. Hope you've enjoyed it. Great collective effort by our team. Josh Lee, Cisco, Preston Poole back in the studio, and Josh Lupton out here as well, and everybody at Hopscotch for taking such great care of us. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast either on the radio, our Sports Animal Facebook page, Twitter feed, or our YouTube page as well. And we've still got some fireworks going on in the draft. I told you the Mavs are looking to use that trade exception. And I thought, well, a couple of weeks from now, maybe they might. Yeah. And they just used it. $17 million. So this is going to be a hell of a player, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be.
Rashawn Holmes from Sacramento. So the Kings are trading Rashawn Holmes.
Mavericks are going to Maverick.
And the number 24, he is tall. And the number 24 pick to Dallas. And this ended up being Olivier Maxence Prosper out of Marquette. And so that's who the Mavericks are going to get. Hopefully this is just the second step of a few more for the Mavs. Otherwise,
I hope so. $17 million. Rashawn Holmes is your guy?
Yeah, we're going to have to let the dust clear on this because this sounds like there could be more to this than just that. At least I hope so.
Or anyway. Preston made something up back in studio.
Can't confirm I did not.
Okay. We're at that point, and we checked out that Woj Twitter feed, and it wasn't Woj 420 or something like that. It was this. This is the actual reporting from ESPN. So it's happening.
It's got the blue check mark for whatever that's worth.
Not much anymore.
No, that's true.
So I mean, Rashawn Holmes has been a good player in this league, but he wasn't even playing for Sacramento a year ago. So that's why we're a little bit trepidatious by saying, hey, Rashawn Holmes is going to be a key cog for the Mavericks attack next year. We're about done. Just to go through, I know a lot of you have been with us throughout the course of the evening. Wemby went first. Brandon Miller 2 to Charlotte. Scoot Henderson 3 to Portland. They're keeping him.
Yep.
Amen Thompson and his brother Assar go 4 and 5 respectively to Houston and Detroit. Anthony Black to Orlando at 6. I really like that one. Bilal Coulibaly, this is the first of 2 trades inside the top 10. He goes to Washington, who moves from 8 to 7. Jarris Walker from Houston, he goes to the Pacers. Taylor Hendricks, who we all wanted to be the next Thunder star, he goes number 9 to the Utah Jazz. The next pick was the Thunders after they moved up to 10 to get this from Dallas. Really, it was the Mavericks moving back to try to get off of Davis Bertans' contract, which they did. And the Thunder take Casey Wallace, the point guard out of Kentucky. Jet Howard from Michigan goes number 11, also to Orlando. The Mavs, who move back to 12, they get Derek Lively, the big kid from Duke, 7-1. Grady Dick, the shooter out of Kansas, he goes number 13 to Toronto. Did he know, because of the red and black outfit, that he was going to be a Raptor? Jordan Hawkins from UConn, one of the better shooters in the draft, goes number 14 to the Pelicans. Kobe Buffkin to the Hawks. Keontae George to the Jazz. Jalen Hood-Scafino is drafted by the Lakers. Jaime Jaquez, the ninth-year senior out of UCLA, goes to the Miami Heat. Brandon Podziemski from Santa Clara goes to the Golden State Warriors. Cam Whitmore, who was mocked in a lot of top fives, goes all the way down to 20 to the Rockets. That could be some value there.
Yep.
Noah Clowney, Derek Whitehead to the Nets. Chris Murray to the Blazers. That could end up being one of the better picks of the first round. And we just told you about what happened with 24. The Thunder had the number 37 overall pick, so we'll see what they end up with there. But that's probably a G League type prospect. But of course, tune into the Morning Animals tomorrow, and they will let you know what's going on. They'll have audio from Sam Presti's post-draft press conference, which Josh Lee is going to help put together a little bit later on. So, your final thoughts outside of the Thunder in this year's draft?
Well, I think it's been a lot of fun because I think there's a lot of guys that can really do good things in this league. You know what Wembanyama is going to be. At least we assume we do. I think he'll be an all-world type of guy. Brandon Miller, how does he fit in, and how does he become a pro? That jump shot is sweet. There's no doubt about it. Does the baggage come back to hurt him? Does his attitude come back to hurt him? You know, what kind of character guy is he playing up against with LaMelo Ball, and can LaMelo Ball stay healthy? I think that goes a long way. Scoot Henderson and Damian Lillard will be a lot of fun. But once you get past the top 3, there's a lot of players and a lot of fits that I'm very interested in.
Yep.
You know, whether we're talking Anthony Black whether we're talking Jet Howard going really early to the Orlando Magic. What kind of player does he end up being? A steal, or does he end up being a what were you thinking? So those kind of things I think will be interesting. Kobe Buffkin falling to the Hawks at 15. That's what the Hawks need, are more guards. I mean, they only have 8 on the roster, so why not add one more? And surprisingly enough, despite the fact that he was Russell Westbrook's favorite teammate at UCLA, Jaime Jaquez, I actually like that fit for Miami. He's another guy that can just go out there and shoot the basketball, and that's what he does. And so we'll see what kind of player he is with them. So there's a lot of guys like we talked about earlier. I think there's going to be a chance 5 years from now that we're going to go, that was a really, really good draft. Not necessarily top heavy, but a lot of value throughout.
And for the Thunder, this hopefully is going to be a player that energizes them on both ends of the floor, particularly the defensive end from a guard and wing perspective. That's something that they still can use, even with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's defensive improvement from a year ago. But this could be at the end of the night versus, hey, remember him and he did or didn't pan out. Because of the fact that if he does, I think this is Sam Presti's finger getting that much closer to the button. What I think this pick, what we could remember this pick for.
Yep. And I look forward to the day he pushes that button, but I also agree it's not time. You got to see what you got. And until you play a season with Chet fully healthy, hopefully, then, I think next summer will be an outstanding time to reevaluate everything and go, okay, what holes do we need filled? Do we want to fill some of those with draft picks because they have 3 more next year, or do we want to fill those with an established guy? You go out and see what you can get for about 3 or 4 first round picks and a couple of players, and then there you go. And then the Thunder could be off to the races.
Keep it tuned to the Sports Animal. Tomorrow we'll have a ton of post-draft audio for you so you can catch up and really hear a little bit more from Case and Wallace what the Thunder were thinking this year's NBA draft. But, this was a wild one tonight. Hope you enjoyed our coverage. For everybody here at the Sports Animal and for Bobby Thompson, my name's Gideon Hamilton. You have been listening to WWLS The Sports Animals live coverage of the 2023 NBA draft. Have a great night, everyone.
I'm Tiger Woods.